All right, guys. Time to be funny again on the new episode of Plat Chat. It's the Valorant podcast, huh? We did the thing happening. There was another Nexus event, and the timeline branched off, and here we are with a brand new. We got a new episode. There was another episode just lost in time. It's been erased. So here we are.
And Icebox is destroyed.
Yeah, Icebox has been heated
finally. But it's episode, don't know,
75.
75. And we're here to talk about Valorant. Guys,
I've literally evaporated.
So vanished on the TV.
The ARG has started. The ARG has started. RyanCentral evaporates.
Oh,
That's
no.
what happens.
This is the first move. Obviously, I have to be involved. You know, it's in collaboration with other YouTubers as well. Is that on my end? Do I need to fix some?
This has never happened before. Oh, I mean, there he goes. All right, hold on, let me start and put him back in.
I just hear Ryan say, guys, do I have to fix something? Just gone. Just.
Is he here in the call?
He's still on the call. Yeah, he's still on the call.
There he is. We found him.
That's it. It gets the engagement up. Chat is going mental, obviously. They're like, what is this? And I don't have an answer for that. And I guess that's my intro. It's nice to be here. As per usual, it's a grand old thing. It's almost as good as the little section that I was going to do from the EMEA LCQs for the Plat Chat co-stream for NALCQ. But of course, everything was on fire, so it never saw the light of day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, a lot of people would like to forget about NALCQ, but that's fine. That's okay. But yeah, Ryan's here and Josh isn't here, so someone's got to talk about EU, and then the whole thing. We did the intro, and then, guys, you bad, NA good. Let's talk about 100 Thieves. You know who's not going to be on that team? Stewie 2K. That's too bad because he joined the CS team. But they do have Baby J and Eccles. What do you guys think?
That was a lot. That was a lot. That was.
You seem a little stressed, Wyatt.
That was a lot that you just went through there. I mean, you guys don't get viewers. If we ever find the Plat Chat lost tapes, then you're gonna understand everything I just did there. But that's. I'm just gonna rehash my point. This roster looks solid. I don't think their ceiling's as high as without Nitro. There you go. That's my thoughts on 100 Thieves. And we're getting a cinematic here. This is the 100 Thieves cinematic.
Oh, dude, look at this crazy graphic that we're looking at for the first time. What?
Sort of.
It's not deep.
Oh, Tico. Remember this? Tico against.
Have any of you explained that we were re-recording the beginning because I screwed up the audio?
I think I did.
Release the Wyatt cut. That's what we need to see.
Where's the Wyatt cut? Where is it?
I mean, yeah. So we did like the first two topics, and then Ryan leaked the new Valorant skins again or whatever. So we had to restart. To save his career. So here we are talking about 100 Thieves roster.
Isn't too far away from what happened is the best part of that. Like, genuinely. I don't know what the skins are, and just by proxy, I don't give out Riot Buddies as well, just in case that starts up again.
Well, first of all, I mean, yeah, I'm glad we cut out because he was talking about how you could get a Riot Gun Buddy, and we cut that out.
Yeah, that's it. You can't reveal that information. That's just for Mitchman to share with those that are closest to him. So, yeah, I'll leave that up for him.
Okay, so 100 Thieves, Ryan, you're from Europe. What do you make of Eccles going to NA?
The funniest thing about it as well is that because he's still in the UK now, he's waiting for his visa to travel to North America, which is good that he has a bit of time with the close qualifiers invite for 100 Thieves, which I guess we'll touch on. But he must have been like scrimming and trialing whilst on like 180 ping. So I feel like there's almost a chance that he catfished himself onto that team by, I only got 7 kills this trial because it's just a ping. When realistically, it could be the typical Europe, great IGL, great calling, but underperforms, or at least that's like the narrative, I suppose, that Eccles has against him. The thing is, I think people look at that from the Team Liquid days, because he was a Team Liquid IGL. He was on that team with Fish123 that got picked up by Liquid, and then he was dropped, and then suddenly Liquid were good, right? But I think that Liquid had multitude of issues with their agent pool, which I think is one of Eccles' strengths. The fact that he's played Breach, he's played Omen, he's IGL'd, he's even Opt and IGL'd at the same time, right? He's a very flexible player that can do a lot of stuff. But I also feel like his short time that he was on Ninjas in Pajamas, he was a terrific player. Like mechanically, he was a lot better and a lot more confident than he was on Liquid. Not by much if you're looking at it statistically, but I felt like he was the kind of leader in a server like Existence was, because Existence was the IGL for NIP. He had wrist issues. He had to stand out, and then that's where Eccles came in as a temporary player.
Right.
And I think it didn't look too bad. But I feel that he is going to be the player that if suddenly 100 Thieves don't look good, most people are going to point the finger at him being the problem because he's just an IGL and, you know, probably bottom of the scoreboard for those Stevens out there. So it's easy to blame him if it all goes wrong. And the general reaction, I think, overall has just been uninterested, maybe. A kind of like a from the community on Eccles being picked up.
Yeah. Well, is Eccles the kind of, what kind of in-game leader is he? Is he like, you know, is he going to be like, I mean, what is happening to Balla?
There he goes.
There it is. That's what you love to see. Like, is Eccles, you know, I don't know, on the scale from like, you know, just freedom, like from, okay, so on a scale of like the United States of America to Boaster's system of Fnatic early in the year, how much freedom is there in the Eccles in-game leader system?
Probably not that much, I'd have to imagine. You also have this weird dynamic where you have a new IGL in a team alongside a brand new coach with Jovi.
Right.
Which I think what makes Fnatic so successful in that department is that Mini and Boaster are like that when it comes to how they work together. And a lot of the problems, certainly when it comes to what 100 Thieves have been their IGL versus their coach, with Frost and Steel, with what Nitro was saying about when he signed back to Liquid on CS. So I feel like it depends on how well Jovi and Eccles come together. But I feel like Eccles is more like an emotional leader, like stops people from tilting, gets people back into the game. It's almost like more of a football soccer captain than I have huge ideas and these all set plays. Like I'm sure Eccles has those and he can use them, but I think it's more like the kind of like emotional leader, which could help out 100 Thieves, I think, quite a bit.
They're going to script a TV show about this, and it's just the inverse Ted Lasso, where the UK gamer comes to North America to help the NA squad. We got the new 100 Thieves hit show. But, okay, and then Baby J is coming in on Sentinel, and we were talking about, like, Baby J, last we saw of him with FaZe, with LCQ. He was playing really well individually. He was popping off. Compared to the other Sentinels in the region that are available for a team that needs a Sentinel, he's probably number one. There are a couple other guys in the mix, like a Proto, Zachary, etc. But in the last quarter of 2021, I think Baby J was clearly the best free agent, at least to me.
What do you think that he did? Maybe what's more appealing about him than a Pro or a Zachary, for example? Like, is he more of a vocal player? Do you know? Like, I don't know if you guys have like spoken to him personally and have a better understanding of what he brings to the table from talking to Baby Bay and stuff with FaZe at LCQ. Like, what is it about Baby J that might, on paper, not actually be seen by the audience that are looking into this player and wanting to know more?
I've actually watched. Now, obviously, you should never take this at face value, right? But like, I know Zach pretty well from his Overwatch days, and he, from what I have seen of and seen Baby J, because we were at LCQ, so we got to see him. Actually, we didn't get to see Baby J, did we? Did he even play? I can't remember if we actually met him because they were quarantined, weren't they? Yeah, he was quarantined at LCQ, wasn't he? Well, I haven't watched the stream a lot, but he seems more vocal on average, and from what I've seen, he's more vocal. Zachary's not a super average player, or a super vocal player. He does talk a lot and he's communicative, but I feel like Baby J's comms are a little bit better. And also, I think the one thing that Zach has going for him is that Zach also, I think, has a little bit more flexibility outside of the Sentinel role. While Baby J, I actually prefer him staying, like, from what we've seen so far, I actually really like his gameplay comparatively to Zach's, and that he seems to be very aggressive comparatively while playing Sentinel. He's not afraid to take space a lot and use his utility to set himself up. And I think Zach at times was, especially towards the latter parts of FaZe, was playing a lot more supportive style in the latter parts of FaZe. Now, that could just be a playstyle thing because how FaZe was trending. But with those sort of elements, that's what I sort of like about Baby J. And also, like Wyatt mentioned in the Lost Plat Chat episode, is that Baby J is currently looking to be, you know, pointing finger, right hand, trend line going up type of thing. Like his stock is going up currently.
Yes.
He's looking good. Like he might be peaking soon, or
Time
not
to
even close to his
invest.
peak yet. And while Zach, I think, has been relatively consistently solid, so it seems like a proto who's actually probably a little bit more wavy in terms of like going up, down, having highs
Sure.
and lows. So there's probably room for Baby J to still grow as a player, on top of the fact that he seemed to be very aggressive, play off his own utility really well, and potentially seems to be more vocal. So
I think his pace just in general is much better than, for example, Steel playing Sentinel on 100 Thieves, just to be able to keep up with Asuna and what he needs to be doing to find value for the team. So that should work really well. But in terms of like the vocal aspect of it, IGLing on phase, calling a lot of ideas, and that's a team that is very loose, you know, from the get-go. Could be really useful to work in tandem with Eccles playing on this team. So I think that could be nice. I think he is definitely rising, like you guys are all saying. But I don't think it's a pickup that I'm like freaking out about. 100 Thieves going to be godlike, like Navera on Liquid or something like that. You know?
Yeah, it's not like it's just not a blockbuster deal, which is what we've come to expect from 100 Thieves, given how they approached the roster last year, just throwing around cash, getting all these big name CS guys over, that type thing. But yeah, also I think if you do buy into the like, okay, Eccles is not going to have a big fragging output for this team, and if you don't think that Hiko is going to be, you know, Hiko's not going to be getting a lot of big kills like mid-round or making plays mid-round, that kind of thing, Baby J is a player that I think will be more active and actually getting consistent kills for the team. I mean, there were so many games towards the end of the phase run where he was just, I mean, he was hard top fragging, just rolling some of the teams, where just, you know, in mid-round situations or like as the spike is going down, he would get some pivotal play, you know, working up mid while his team is planting on Breeze, and he would just find 1 or 2 kills that would just win the round. He was doing that with a lot of consistency. So if you buy into 100 Thieves needing more firepower and more fragging, I do think Baby J kind of fits the bill with that as well. He was looking like
you could kind of think of him like similar to how Poised was at LCQ as well, like very, very up in the executes as they're happening, like making sure that his spacing is good with his teammates. He's not going to be consistently lurking every single round like you could expect from Steel. That was kind of my point earlier.
Sure.
So Poised is a good comparison, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then also just got announced today, or well, yesterday, I guess, if you're watching this. But for us an hour ago, the top 4 NA teams based on points got in, and then also Cloud9. So the rules are kind of, they got invited to the round robin, like the stage 2 main challengers main event portion of the first NA qualifier. They don't have to play in the open qualifier. Connor, do you want to speak on that again? Because you were.
I did. I had a minority opinion.
Share your thoughts.
I had a minority opinion. I personally didn't think that for the refresh of the new year, for the new VCT and 2022 moving forward, especially when rosters have been revamped. Now, granted, much less so in NA comparatively, minus 100 Thieves comparatively to EU. And also since NA is going to be playing on with Neon and Chamber added and the maps and Ares, etc. The Ares gun changes as well when VCT starts. I felt like we should, it's early enough in the game's life cycle, and since we're not in a franchise system, we might as well just not invite any teams at the start of this year. Everyone should just play through the open qualifiers again, because we don't know who's going to be good with new meta, new maps, new, you know, current balance changes, etc., new agents, and roster changes. So I'd rather all the teams play through it again. But I understand why people want to invite, because it's just a choice, and you know, there are reasons to invite teams, like Balla had explained in this lost footage once again.
I explained it, guys.
He had explained this in this lost footage once again, that not having some of the fan favorites there from Champions is pretty big, and they did have very good results last year. So like you could make the argument that they should get invited this year just for the fans to watch. So they don't have to watch like round 128 fucking the Sentinels versus team oopsie doopsie. So like whatever.
Not even streamed type.
Not even
beat.
streamed. Yeah.
They've seen from getting knocked out by Carpe, knocked him 2 years in a row in the first qualifier.
Yeah.
They're gonna get.
Well, they get
those
the
fans are gonna
skip it
watch
this
the
year.
next stage.
I can see the
Those
Reddit
viewers
thread
will be
already. Like, are we underrating Team Oopsie Doopsie on this subreddit? I can see it already happening. But I think For me, having the teams that made champions get invited, I don't have a problem with. I don't think many people would. I think it's understandable, and I think those players and teams have earned their spot to at least do that, despite maybe disappointing in champions overall. The 100 Thieves, I guess, is like the biggest question mark from points
Yeah, that doesn't make
for
sense at
last
all.
year. Yeah, I mean,
Well-
it's if it's not 100 Thieves, who else should have got that fourth spot? Should there be a fourth slot? Should there be 9 teams making it through open qualifiers instead of 8? I don't know how you'd format that, but could that be a better way of doing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, should there have been a fourth spot? Maybe not, because in my mind, Rise earned this more than, well, not necessarily more than, but I just think that it makes more sense because Rise beat them at LCQ. That 100 Thieves shouldn't get that, or at least if Rise was going, because Rise kept all 5 of their same players. So there should be that aspect too. Whereas 100 Thieves has changed 2 players, and it's probably the most impactful 2 players you could well, not on that team, of course, but still, like, Nitro leaving is so impactful compared to a full 5 roster staying together and a roster that beat them already.
Yeah. And then in the lost footage, we talked a little bit about or Balla made the point that this will be better in the future, though, and I agree. As the year goes on, if this is going to be from stage to stage, or rather from qualifier to qualifier overall, however it works, if the teams that did well in the previous qualifier then get a bump in the next qualifier and don't have to go through the opens, that'll make more sense as time goes on, and the space between these events is more narrow. It's just perhaps a little awkward now because there's so much dead time.
Well, so there's an interesting thing here that was part of the same post. And this is kind of a tangent, but not really. They moved the qualifiers from being one single qualifier to being 2 qualifiers, which was what everybody was complaining about. And it's going to be double elim after round of 32, which is kind of similar to EU, except EU just has a shit ton more teams. So they have like this extra closed qualifier section, which is basically the round of 32 anyways. But if you have these bracket style formats, you can't do what Ryan is suggesting with, well, you can kind of, but you'd have to do extra shit. You can't not have the even amount of teams going into it, because now if, for example, you didn't include 100 Thieves, you would need 9 teams, and getting that out of a bracket system is really fucking awkward.
Yeah, you break it down to 12 and then 10 and then 9. So these teams would have to play like 2 more series in order for it to work. I mean, the only way you could probably do that is the system that I keep seeing you talking about, and making it like Game Changers in EMEA, where it was like Swiss, where it would just be the top 9 teams based on their win-loss record making their way in, which I think is just a better viewing experience, right? I because everybody plays the same amount of games, regardless how you're doing. Even if you have Sentinels losing their first series, they can still win their other 9 if they're playing 10, for example, like Game Changers has it, and there's still a way for them to claw it back. Whether it's single elimination, they're done, they're out, they have to wait again for another week. So I think that's a lot healthier for the teams. It is a lot more games, even if you do well or if you do poorly, you're still playing 10 series, but I think it's probably a lot less stressful because there's bounce back ability and all that jazz. But I think it's, considering all things and considering everybody was like, what the hell is going on with North America? The way that they came out with the system, I think, has answered a lot of the questions that has made me go like, I'm okay with this, despite the fact that it's not making me go, this is the best system that we have. Because it's kind of the same as EMEA. There's only so many games that you can broadcast.
It's EMEA, but worse.
To watch
right now.
You reckon this is worse than EMEA?
Well, yeah, because because for example, Avast would probably be super happy if the teams that got invited to the main event just got added to the round of 32 section.
Oh, I see.
You know, like I mean, probably not. Avast
no, not really, but not necessarily. Not, I don't think.
But the point is that there's that extra section that just makes you way fucking better. Like the way that they're doing. This is such a tangent. I'm sorry, Wyatt, but
no,
the way that
thing. It's Balla's breakdown.
NA is doing the seeding for the next qualifier is basically the teams that don't make it just get preferential seeding. They don't even make it to the further rounds. Like in EU, if you make it to the close qualifier and then you make it deep in the close qualifier but don't qualify for the main event, you're going back to the round of 32. That's why that's better, right? So if Sentinels made it to the round of 16, they would go to the round of 32 after losing in the round of 16 the first time. I know I didn't explain that well, but
it's like carrying a checkpoint, right? You get past a certain threshold, and at least if you go out, you go back to playing in the top 8 teams or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
The format should remain consistent, though, I do think. That's my number one thing here, is that now that we've sort of, the sediment has sunk to the bottom of the metaphorical format river, we must remain. We must keep the format. We must keep the format. I don't want to see swaps to the formats again willy-nilly. I just want to see a consistent format. I don't want to see people riot out there reinventing the wheel at every application. And also part of that is because it's hard to do formats. I do get it. Like, no matter what you choose, people are going to bitch. We're going to bitch about your format choices. It's just going to happen. But there is a very valuable tool, and that's when you just close. You bring up the drawbridge of the castle, and you don't listen to the peons outside. The format is decided. It is over. It's done. Like it's and there's no like glaring holes in it either. Like it's just a format that not everyone's gonna love, but it's a perfectly fine format. Yeah. And we just
so let's do Swiss. Yeah, exactly.
Also bear in mind that there's much more stock on these qualifiers because it'll make or break some teams in Valorant, whether they get into challenges or not in North America. Like if some smaller org makes it, for example, like Ghost get into those top 12 teams in North America, that's a huge boom for them because they're on broadcasts every week playing up against like Sentinels or 100 Thieves or whoever, right? So that can really make a org's investment into Valorant worthwhile. Whereas if you're, say, FaZe and you don't make it, you're contemplating whether you stay in Valorant at that point or not. Because what happens underneath
they have
challenges,
the VRLs, right? Like,
is that worthwhile for an org like FaZe, though?
Oh, wait, NA doesn't have any fucking VRLs.
You don't even have that,
what the hell is going on?
Just the NSG weeklies.
Yeah. I mean, FaZe speaking of orgs investing, FaZe were looking to buy Rise. I mean, they were looking to buy out Rise players, 4 of them to stick with Baby Bay and have that be the new FaZe roster for 2022. That is not going to be the case, though, as is currently reported, because Rise, the team, are going to be bought by the big mystery org. There's a mystery org with all types of big money bags coming in to buy out Rise. And that'll be announced in the nearish future. I mean,
it's
surely before VCT starts.
It's Team Oopsie Doopsie.
Yeah, it's Team Oopsie Doopsie.
They've got a big VC funding, and they've gotten the Play-Doh funding, Team Oopsie Doopsie, and they're going to go huge with that.
Yeah, that would have been pretty mad if 4 of them went to FaZe and then also...
Dude, I just find that such a funny proposition that FaZe Infamous comes over. He's like, hey guys, Rise, like, Shanks, stay over there, bro. Stay over there. Like, I have Baby Bear already. He's talking to the rest of them like, guys, you guys want to come to FaZe? Fuck your boy Shanks. Screw your brother. We don't need you. We got Baby Bear.
Who would be the player that they wouldn't have?
Funny.
I mean, it would be Shanks.
They said they're going to build around... I think they specifically said that Baby Bay was the player they were hoping to, like, keep. So it probably would have been Shanks that would have been dropped in the situation.
Funny too.
That would have been so strange. And there's
sad dolphin laugh.
There's just no reason. There's just no reason to chop and change Rise at all.
Whoa!
I don't think.
Hold up. There's the lead is buried. FaZe Clan offered $500,000 to Rise for the acquisition of. Damn. Okay. There's the fucking lead. Right.
And they weren't able to come to an agreement for this either. Which they weren't able. That's the other thing too. They said they weren't able to come to an agreement. Which generally, when that happens, it's just because the other team is not accepting more often than not. Like when there's money on the table, it's just because the offer is generally not good enough. Unless there's like other confounding factors, which I don't know what there are, because there's not like we're dealing with huge brands or sponsors for Rise.
Tier 2 free agent or Tier 2 players are going for $250K of pop on the NA market to fucking XSET and B1, and you offer Rise $500K? Nah, bro, what the fuck?
Get 4 for free. Get 4 for free. That's my offer. Buy one, get one free on the Rise players.
That is nuts. But they, reportedly did come to an agreement with another organization, and I saw all the Rise players at some point last week. They were all posting about how they wanted out of their contracts, or like we want to be free.
Yeah, I think it was specifically like Superman that said that like I need to get a lawyer next time and sign this shit or something. Like he's like he was just talking about how he was just locked in the contract jail.
What do you mean next time, bro?
He just said next time. I think that's essentially what it was implying. Is like
listen, obviously things I suppose did end up working out because Rise, at least reportedly, has in fact sold the team. But I think that's all for the NA news segment this week. And pretty soon, Pretty soon, it's a very good image. Pretty soon,
Wait.
You're trying to tell me that that's not worth $500,000 itself?
I mean, that could be.
Just Rise sent that picture to FaZe and said, "You want this plus free for $500,000?" I'm sorry, case closed.
Before we move to the EU
Balla.
shit, Wyatt, we have to spend a moment to go back and be sad that NA has been downgraded
Oh yeah,
to-
from 3 slots.
from 3 slots at Masters 1 to 2 slots.
Oh.
wait, is that actually true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we got
That's true.
downgraded. We lost slots. Yeah, from 3 to 2 for Masters 1.
Did I make a new topic for this?
This is Kurt. Make a new topic
It's
for
they
this.
they did
just
it.
call
It
it
was on
NA
This
the,
minor
is so
region
sad.
kick W.
it was in the Valorant NA Esports. They tweeted it with the format changes, and it's
Where
because
was
that's when
wait?
they
Where
also-
was this?
It very recently, the past like hour or so. I
Oh,
wanna
it
say.
just came out. Okay, I
It
was
literally
gonna
just
say.
came out. They
So it
it's
was
when
with all this
they-
other stuff.
Yes, it's with everything. It's when they announced also the change to 2 qualifiers, and there's
Yeah.
double them at like round
Okay,
32
okay.
onward or whatever. And then they also added that we have that NA. I shouldn't say we. I'm a nationless state here. You know, I'm like the Vatican. Okay, I don't have any affiliation that I've ever been with. So yeah, NA went from 3 slots to 2 at Masters 1.
This is so sad.
I know.
2 slots? What is the overall slot breakdown now?
We don't know.
Okay,
We
don't
don't know
know.
what
So
EMEA have either.
It could just be that we're going down to 12 teams at Masters 1, like Reykjavik.
SCA
and
gets
just
3
whatever.
slots.
But
Yeah.
it does. But I'm pretty sure we
Yeah.
know that Brazil has 2 slots
Yeah.
already. And didn't you say, Ryan, that Latam is confirmed to have 2 as well?
I don't think it's confirmed, but it's heavily rumored. I think it's all but confirmed at this point. So yeah,
That's really
Yeah, 'cause
interesting.
that was kind of the implication, right? That Brazil would lose 1 and Latam would gain 1. I thought that was what was implied.
Zom's BM was
previously,
so
but-
bad. Right, well, like we're taking a slot from you and giving it to Latam to make up for it.
I mean, Crew also just took it from them.
Yeah.
They're just
yeah,
like,
crew
also
kind of
just
stole
stole
that. But yeah, wow. So there's only 2 teams.
Yep.
Interesting. Have they thought about the viewership aspect of this? Have they thought about what might happen if 100 Thieves don't make it? And
Our dad owns the dealership, Riot. Put NA in Masters. Put it in Masters.
I mean, this is so sad. This is so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there's, we'll go back to this, I'm sure, when the full breakdown is announced. But this is. So, what are we, we're gonna have like
You're
Guild and
acting-
FPX.
You're
so
acting like
funny.
a celebrity's just died. It's that kind of
No,
same
this is far more
reaction.
personal. This is far more personal to Wyatt that NA is not here.
Oh, this is so sad.
More sad than any celebrity.
Well-
Why? Let's face reality, though. This was probably deserved.
yeah.
Probably. It's
Probably.
okay because honestly, NA could have 15 slots as long as there's 1 slot for the Brazilian super team. It doesn't even matter because
Which
Auspus,
move on. Next
Auspus
topic.
and the boys are about to just go through and
Next
roll
topic.
everyone.
Next
It doesn't
topic.
even. I mean, legitimately doesn't even matter.
Okay.
But we're going to talk about actual matches. Guild. They've finally. I mean, this isn't the first time they've won a thing, has it been? But Guild, they've got the new roster. They played with the new roster. They were in the open qualifier. And they just swept it. They dropped like 1 map, I think.
Yep.
To like Rebels or someone. They
Rebels.
kind of just stormed through the whole qualifier. There was a bit of question in regards to what roles they were going to have with the players, with some of the new signings. Specifically, the one that I was looking at was Trex playing like a lot of Cypher, playing Sentinel for the team when he had primarily before been playing Duelist, and he was really good on Duelist. But also, evidently, as from watching these games, he's very good on Sentinel too. And this Guild team looked goddamn nasty. They have Safe on pretty much full-time Jett now. I mean,
yeah, I think he almost exclusively.
was he only
played
on Jett?
I can check.
I'm
Was
checking
he
all
play-
their matches right now, and he played Jett.
I mean, the Jett agent is still
he
very
played
good.
Yeah.
one map
I don't know if
of
you'll notice.
Raze. He played 1 map of Raze and still almost had a 300 ACS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was very early on in the
Yeah,
tournament.
Raze,
I imagine
Jett,
that's
I
when
mean,
they played.
It wasn't
It's
any
just-
of the later rounds at all. Like quarterfinals onwards and round of 16 onward, he was only Jett. So
I mean, actual just Yeah, I mean, just Jett, by the way. Just Jett being good? Yep. I mean, like, is water wet? Yep. It's just Jett. I mean, Jett is just going to be good forever. It's just always going to be in the meta. And Safe was just dominating with Jett throughout this tournament and all of the maps that I was able to watch. And then still just, I mean, Leo is just mega consistent for these guys. But the new supporting cast of the team was what I was the most interested in, obviously, because you can kind of expect to some extent, after seeing Safe and Leo for so long, you know the quality gameplay they're going to bring, but the new recruits and under the Coldamenta IGLing, I was impressed. I liked what I saw from Guild.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
It was just a breath of fresh air to watch them, I think is probably the best way to describe them. And like, yeah, it makes sense to build a team around Safe and Leo because especially from LCQ for EMEA, they were the two top players to really keep an eye on because they changed around their roles, were a bit more aggressive in what they were playing, and it sort of made up for it. I think the big thing for me, though, is sure, when you're looking at like Trex and Rust being picked up, it could be the same as like Eccles and Baby J for 100 Thieves, where you look at them and go, yeah, they're pretty big pickups, but they're not screaming, oh my God, this team is insane now. It's like a super team. But I think that watching like the grand finals and maybe some of the other qualifying games, like the grand finals against Vitality, or not even the grand finals, the upper bracket final to qualify, Russ was insane on an agent like Sky. And he played up against, for Vitality, a KO, a Sky, and then a Breach, I think. And he was still just diffing back in a lot of those cases, which is hard to do. So I think that you saw more of what made Safe and Leo so amazing, but you also got a good indication and a good showing of why they brought in players like Russ and Trex in the first place. And for Coldamenta, I think this is the best he's mechanically played in a long, long while. Like, he looks a lot more comfortable and confident. And if Safe dies, he's always the one that's there to like trade afterwards, which you never really saw all that much from Ascend, and certainly not for G2. So it just, how well this team came together in such a short space of time. They played much more tighter off each other than Alliance and Vitality that have had that team for months. And that's the most exciting thing about this team.
I was so hyped to see a different Guild. Like, every single time you watch Guild before this roster, it was always very, very basic stuff. Sometimes they'd have a Breach. Bonker would be playing Breach. And they just kind of run it down. Not run it down, but like methodically take an area and then go for it. There was never any cool ideas. There was never anything special from this team. There was never any mid-round calls that you're like, oh, damn, they faked them out there. Like, that was really nice. It was very simple. And it worked because their players were good, because they had Leo and Safe and Yassine, in some cases, just doing very, very well. This is different. This is the first time for me, any of Coldamenta's teams look really structured and like playing with a game plan. Like, Ascend never really felt like that to me. Ascend did do like some really cool creative stuff at the beginning when Coldamenta was playing on them. And then G2 just free flowy as hell. Like, yeah, sometimes there's some counter stratting going on, but beyond that, it was just like all the players are doing their thing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this team, there's fast hits, there's pace changes, there's a lot on their attacking side. Now, I'd say that their defensive halves were definitely not, in my mind, very impressive at all, because most of the time there was a lot of unforced errors by individuals. And I think that's what's going to happen with new teams, is you're going to have one side that's really good, and on the other side, it's not as polished, it's not as clean. But they still are able to, just with the skill of the team, overcome some of that stuff and make those halves really impressive. And I think with more time, this team is not going to be that same Guild that you've heard or talked about for a long time. They're not just gonna be like the top 4 Slayers or whatever and then never qualify. I think they have a good chance here.
Yeah. Kurt, do you want to pull up? I mean, there's a good clip, I think, that kind of illustrates what Balla was talking about that I sent you. It's like the Sheriff round clip from, it was Breeze in the
from Breeze. It was
final.
so nice.
But I think that kind of illustrates what
round too.
Yeah, what Balla was talking about. Like,
yeah, it was really good.
Just there, watching like the Breeze and the Bind maps back to back, like on Breeze, they were just so loose and there were so many fast hits on attack, but they were really well executed. And then on the post plant, like Trex was always in the perfect position to lock down the flank, find a pick or two while the retake was trying to come in. And then on Bind, they were just so much more thought out with really nice executes. But yeah, it was just rounds like this where it's like, again, just Russ, safe, just pushing into these areas, just hitting crazy shots and winning these rounds that, I mean, it's like you want to say that the rounds they don't deserve because they're eco rounds, but the skill on the team is just pretty nasty across the board. And
look at where Russ is. He's trailblazer in front of their faces. I think the only just had to quickly check, because I do agree with you, Balla, when you said about like Gil's defensive sides, but their worst ones were definitely like Breeze and Icebox, which I think every team sort of has those kind of like one-sided halves, right? So, and this team has been together a month. There's a lot of like issues to really fix. They banned out Fracture all of the time and played every other map other than that. And I think that was probably indicative. Like, I don't know how much we're going to talk about like Vitality, for example, who are a team that were like really heavy on the Fracture and tried to play it as much as possible. I think the wisest thing for these teams to do was to just permaban Fracture, just forget about it, and then try and play everything else to that level. Because Vitality can spend a load of time making themselves one of the best teams in the EMEA on Fracture, and then never actually see it in even a best of 5, right? Because the other team naturally bans it out. I'm pretty sure all of the other main teams banned out Fracture on their way up to it. So I think that the fact that Guild's map pool, they even said that their map pool sucked in comparison to Vitality, and then 3-0'd them. It kind of says a lot, I think, about like Guild actually being a lot more of a deeper potential team in EMEA than just qualifying for it. I think there's a lot going for this team, but it also could very well just be honeymoon period. How much can Safe get away with? Because he was getting away with quite a lot with his aggression and how he approached stuff. It was insane what he was able to do, but I don't know how long that lasts until a team really starts to make them sweat and get under their skin. Well, kind of like
what
Rebels
happens when they play Gambit, you know, like how is Safe going to continue to do this? Because I was underwhelmed. I was actually underwhelmed with both Safe and Leo, and I know that sounds crazy. Safe obviously probably doesn't sound as crazy, but Leo to me was not the same Leo from LCQ until probably like second half of Bind in this series at least. And I don't know why, but obviously he can come back and do better for me. His was it defensive side where they played second half? He is so good with his damn shock darts. It's unbelievable. But there are situations on attack side where he is consistently like doesn't have any play. Like you could see he's in a clutch situation or something like that. I remember that there was a 1v2 where he's rotating around to post plant and he's in long and he rotates around. He has Hunter's Fury. He could play the 1v1. The guy's low, but he just doesn't have a play because he doesn't want to Hunter's Fury and miss and then not be able to get there in time for the defuse. He doesn't have shock darts or anything like that. There's things like that I think if he just studies a little bit more, can be a little bit more refined, he's going to be a monster. But until then, he's going to be caught in situations where he can't offer anything to his teams in certain cases.
Yeah. I think that's also like I think that naturally a lot of Sovas especially fall into that problem on Bind. Like it's a hard map to have those individual plays, but I do agree to an extent that like Leo can still sort of grow. I think my concern is that for me out of the two, it's that Safe was just being so unsafe with his approach to how he played that realistically, like you said, when they play up against Gambit or Fnatic, and now that there's a lot more real on how these guys play, how much can he do that? And what happens if it doesn't work? Do you end up in a situation where like Kellogg's was for G2? And he looked really good to begin with, and then he didn't have an answer to any of the questions posed to him afterwards. Like that is likely, but I feel more positive about this Guild team making a run-in for Masters potentially than then bottoming out of challenges and being like relegated to a VRL, if that makes sense. At least middle of the pack, but I think they're going to be out of the Europe qualifiers, the most scary team when it comes to actually challenging the champions 4 that are in there as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, most of these, probably a lot of these issues, we're just going to have to wait and see, because I think it's really early to call for this team of like where they're going to be in Masters. Like once we get to Masters, like what is there for? Or I mean, I guess not Masters, but rather once we get to the main challengers events, like what
this team is 100% a playoff team though. I'll say that. Like they're making it to playoffs. They're good. And another point on Trex, this guy is like
he is really nasty.
It's actually really fun to see like what team did he play for before in CIS? Because I swear I'm just seeing Nats from Masters 1 type of shit that he like literally the same setups on Split, like those types of things. It's,
They used
it's
a
a lot
lot
of
of Nats.
Trex,
I
yes.
think.
Yeah,
I think
Singularity he was on.
Singularity. Yeah,
Singularity,
that's what it was. Mhm.
But he was on Duelist. I think this is the first time he's ever played like Sentinels for a team, or at the very least with him playing on Singularity, Honkin,
Also, I
and OG.
mean, wasn't
There were
he on
always
OG?
duelists. There were always more like aggressive stuff that he was playing. So the fact that he looks this good so quickly on a whole different subset of agents, and like you said, plays in that style, like his lurking, his positioning, his clutches, like he is the sort of hidden gem, I think, of this team that really unlocks them. And
Yeah.
he doesn't get enough credit. Russ, I was a bit like, he's an all right pickup. And then in that last like qualifying game, I was like, he looks like one of the most like cohesive skies in Europe right now, which is hard considering we're not really in a sky meta anymore. So the fact that he made it work as well as he did was a real shining example. I don't think it was really the best showing from Trex, but from watching him and casting him getting up to that point, you could really sort of tell that there was something magical about him. And I feel like he's just going to have some unreal play at some point in challenges that's really going to highlight how good this guy is.
Yeah, I think that is all very reasonable. And now to the unreasonable, the chaos. What the heck is going on with G2 is the current topic title. And that is also my question. I mean, G2 have just... Watching the games was an interesting experience. I mean, you could clearly see the issues at hand, but then just everything surrounding the games after. Mixwell, after G2 failed to qualify, then Mixwell is gone, and then they're bringing back Kellogg's, who they had gotten rid of previously, and their coach was like, "Nah, bro, we don't even need an IGL. We have 5 IGLs," or whatever he was talking about. And then Nookie posted a clip and he was calling for them like it was the end, like it was Ascend and Masters 1 of last year or something. And then so clearly they don't have 5 IGLs. Dude, I don't know what is happening with G2, but watching their games, it was just it was chaos. When I was watching the games, because I like to try and find some clips to send over to Kurt so he can play them. I'm like, oh, well, that's a weird round that we could probably play. And the next round, I'm like, well, that was an even worse one. And then the next one, I'm like,
no,
well, that
this
was
one.
not good too. And then at some point, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to send over like 3 clips on Fracture. And then like, whoa, dude, this post plant, I ran this back 48 times. I was so lost in the sauce. They like cube off the site. And then, I mean, they make the political alignment chart on the site, and they're in the upper right quadrant, and no one is sticking the spike. And then Avova gets on it too late, and then Mixwell is out fighting, and Nookie's looking around like, dude, where's he fighting from? And no one's talking. There's no communication. I was so confused.
No, the one that I particularly loved is when... Wait, was that when they pushed... Did they push mid? Was that the round where they pushed mid after they hit the wall? I particularly loved the one where they Astra ulted, and then they, for A site, pushed off of Dish and went mid. And just went into mid on a pistol round,
yes.
and then just died. They got no map control anywhere. They just died pushing mid after walling A site and falling out of drop. It was just crazy. It was just a
You're
crazy
talking
thing.
about the rope and spawn. Play.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It was wild. It was one of those wild,
this-
because like they just use it. It was an interesting play, like on its face value, because I was like, okay, you sort of like fake the A hit, and then you rush mid to spawn and maybe find a kill, but they find no kills, they take no map control, and they all die, and they don't clear
Look,
sight.
This retake, it's 4v3. They have the gun economic advantage. They're going so slow. There's just no utility. They're all pushing from the same area, just standing around. It just looked like there was such a massive failure of communication.
All 3 Alliance players were in tower after Spike got planted, and they had them stuck there.
Yeah.
But they let him get out. That's why this is so you picked the perfect rounds on that Fracture game. Like, honestly,
There's another one. I can't even remember what the last one was.
Fucking Christ!
I do remember what the last one was, because Lothar started maulding. Because I think this was on Lothar's stream, and he was maulding about this ult, and I thought it was kind of funny. But he was right, because it was like poorly timed.
There's a really nice thing about this as well that Lothar didn't spot, is that when the Rolling Thunder comes out, Fearoff goes through the door. So the sound isn't heard of him going through the door. He literally times as the Rolling Thunder's thrown in. So that comes through.
Oh, really?
And then Fearoff sort of lurking around. It might not be this round, actually.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
It,
Well,
no, it should be.
they're
So he's sort of lurking
retaking-
around in that position because they know that they're going to get like probably ulted. And then the rolling thunder comes through. He sneaks through the door and just flanks them, and they have no idea that he's there. Like, it's such a good play. Like, now, perfectly timed. Through, and they have no idea he's there.
That is a good little play, but also just, I mean, just like it's just a clear example of communication failure, which was just seemed to be in abundance in these games. But I mean, someone else talk. The Balla, do the Balla breakdown.
I'm looking at the games, and I'm looking at the comps, and I'm just confused. I understand there's a want for Mixwell to play Jett, but then they play Bind, and he's playing Raze instead of Nuki, and Nuki's like one of the best Raze players in the world. I'm just like, hold on a second. He's playing Sova instead, and Nuki's great on anything pretty much. I mean, you saw him play fucking Viper. Which also is another question. You have Mixwell, who played fantastic on Viper throughout the entirety of stage 3, and he wants to play a duelist. Okay, cool. So now you're in a position where, like, you don't have I don't know. It's just very confusing right off the bat about like what Mixwell's needs are and wants are. But then you pair all this communication stuff clearly going on Fracture, and then also the other map that they played against Alliance, not Bind. Bind was fine. Alliance just wasn't very good at Bind. You pair that with everything else that you watch, and you're wondering, like, is the Nuki versus anybody on this team, like the drama that was happening, the relationship problems that people were talking about, is that like a reality? Is that why Kellogg's isn't playing? Like, there's all these questions are coming to a place where I'm like, damn, I have to now give credence to them. I have to, because nothing makes sense. So are we at a spot right now with G2 where it's literally like this or that in terms of like one of the personalities on the team, whether it's Mixwell or Nuki? That's where I feel like we are. It's like a star player thing that happens in regular sports where it's like they have an ego so damn big that they're demanding something, and if it's not happening, they're not happy.
Yeah, it definitely felt that this change was like a vote of no confidence in Mixwell to bring back Kellogg's, which I disagree with, because I think that's a bit neat. Like, think of it this way. They allowed Fracture in the map pool. The first map that they played of this season, where it's new map, new team that they're playing with, new coach, new foundation battles, and they decide to go to Fracture, and they're like, why didn't this work? Like, no shit, it didn't work. You're throwing yourself in at the deep end in every way regardless, and you're also playing Alliance that at least had 3 to 4 games of warming up, realistically, going through the open qualifiers. It looks a lot better now for G2. I'm sure a lot of people are going to go, oh, this time G2 could make it all the way because they've not dropped a map or whatever, and Kellogg's is doing really well. It's because they can have those open qualifiers to warm up against, like, the oopsie-doopsie immortal gang of just stacking up and playing up against each other. But also, they're banning out Fracture now.
Good, man. Those guys are good. Okay?
They're perma-banning Fracture. I just feel like I don't really blame G2 for sort of getting lost on that map completely. Like, having it in 2 best of 3s in a single day isn't a bit questionable. But why don't you think that that was a possibility? That these teams on Fracture could absolutely destroy you. Everything else, other maps-wise, was relatively close, like in overtime or like a 13-11 scoreline. And I don't think that G2 team were that far away from really fixing all of their issues with Mixwell. I hate that this is knee-jerky, and I hate it even more that it might work out in the end for G2, because I don't think that it's Kellogg's is the thing that fixes it all. Mixwell is the issue. I don't think it's that at all. I just think that there's a little bit more consistency and a little bit more breathing room for G2 to actually warm up, because nerves were a part. Avova said that himself. So I just think that this move for G2, I hope it almost doesn't work in a sense, because it is a very G2 move though, right? In League of Legends and whatever, that they would make these kind of like blockbuster knee-jerky moves to bring in players like Kellogg's. But if that's what the players want, and if 4 of those players would rather play with Kellogg's over Mixwell to better their chances, credit to them. I just really don't think that Mixwell was the problem here at all. And I think it's the way that G2 was set up to play in those series with their map pool, with the fact that they were giving themselves no leeway, because it's a fresh start for them to play. Imagine a team coming into Champions and played Fracture as their first ever map. They're obviously going to look a little bit shaky.
What have they been hard scrimming Fracture, though, and dominating on it?
I still think that if you're playing up against a team that is happy to let Fracture in the map pool, they either have an answer for it, or at the very least have had a chance to maybe use it in open qualifiers to be a bit more comfortable.
Was Mixwell IGLing? Ryan, do you know?
Supposedly, it wouldn't surprise
That's what
me
I heard
if
as well.
like Avova was secondary IGL for Heretics, whatever that means.
No,
but
Mixwell. I think the ruse was Mixwell was IGLing during those matches.
Like specifically thinking on Fracture, like if there is a leader that is pushing that, and then you watch that game, and you come away thinking G2 knows how to play Fracture, then I don't know what's like, and that to me, if Mixwell's the guy making that call, then I have serious questions about.
Yeah, I don't think that at all, but it's why realistically they banned out Breeze and they banned out Icebox. So it wasn't like they really didn't like Breeze and didn't want to play it. They were trying to maybe be a bit cheeky with like how FPX bans out maps depending on their opponent because they're good at all of the other maps, as they like to say, or whatever, like Christ. It's that kind of thing that I think G2, like a lot of teams, I think I spoke to Zisto from Supermassive Blaze. I said, do you not want to play Fracture? There's a lot of teams that are banning it. He said, we can, we just don't want to because we're a very young squad. We've been together a month and we had to ban a map. So we'd rather ban one map, especially the one that's new where we haven't spent as much time as a Breeze or an Icebox or whatever, than make it complicated for ourselves. I think G2 made it complicated for themselves by going, yeah, let's just play Fracture as our first fucking map of the year. How badly can that go wrong?
Yeah, I am glad that you did mention the Mixwell point though, because I think it is fairly obvious when you're watching this that definitely Mixwell was not looking incredibly comfortable on Jett. He was not looking incredible. I mean, yeah, I don't know what was going on. That
you're playing a good team. You can't just expect to get away without dashing. Like, they're gonna have more people there.
That happened a lot actually, where they lost people on halls. Like they had Avova constantly put a star there, hoping to get a suck, and they would just spam it, expecting him to go for the suck, and they would pick him multiple times in halls too. Like, but that's the point, right? Like that's a Mixwell moment. But regardless of that, my counterexample was a non-Mixwell moment of Avova diving in halls, doing something similar to that, trying to play off his star. And I think that their performance here was definitely not all Mixwell not being that great at Jett. Like it was 100% not all on Mixwell here. I think that was like the focus gets placed on Mixwell.
I don't even think Jett has a part in this conversation at all. And I know that's a big focus point, but like the way that they played the map was just so bad.
It was bad. Yeah, their overall play was weird.
That's the problem.
Erratic, chaotic. It was Dr. Eggman from Sonic the Hedgehog levels of planning. Like it was just strange. It was strange.
Yeah. There was just clearly, it looks like, I mean, the biggest problem is that it looks and absolutely seems to be that there is just no structure in this team whatsoever. Whether it be for personalities, butting heads, whatever it is, the 5 IGL theory, there is no level of structure with the team as it currently exists. And just swapping out Mixwell for Kellogg's, I don't see how that's going to introduce some level of structure or like communication hierarchy that this team can work from. Like, kind of a weird example to compare it to, but it's like looking at a roster rebuild like T1, where it's like, okay, there's Coach David Denis, who's in charge, and then they have signed IGL Steel to be in charge of the team, who will be calling. And then they have surrounded him with pieces that he can use in X, Y, and Z ways, talent that can be developed. Like, there's clearly an outline. There is a blueprint for how they are approaching this. Where with this, it's just chaos.
Yeah, but that's also G2. They've never had a like structured sense with and they've had another great IGL with Cultamenta, who looks night and day a lot more comfortable, and the team playing around him and him playing around the team. So. Yeah, I also think that like it's worth discussing like Hoodie and Meadows like debut for the team. I think Hoodie actually played like really well. Like it's just what he's suited for. But it's also like, why did you bring in those two players and Pipson if you weren't going to focus on structure? Because that's what Giants did so well. Like when you have like Fatinho as a main duelist, like it's not the same. I'd say that Mixwell is better than Fatinho at that point, but the way that Fatinho and Ambi, especially when they were playing on Jett, actually played around the team in the structure, like seeing it at Champions, he wasn't going in for insane plays. He was doing what the team needed him to do. So I think there was a lot of confusion. And probably one of the reasons why I think Meadows statistically underperformed, right, is just that it's very hard to set up a play and make a gauge of how to approach certain situations, certainly as a sentinel, if you don't know what the right hand is doing. It's those kind of areas that I think concern me. But like, why did you bring in Pips and Hoodie and Meadow if you weren't going to have some form of like fundamental system in place? Like,
they do have a system. It's a mushroom-style fungal network where they all IGL at the same time. That is their system. There's no IGL. They just connect their neurons and they all speak to each other.
No, but genuinely, that's what it fucking looks like. I mean, not even like, don't even look at Fracture, for example. Look at Hoodie and Meadow. It looks like two players who were brought onto a team and they're listening. They're like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna play. Like, what the fuck are they doing over here? I guess I'm just gonna play. I don't have any ideas on what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just gonna do what I think I'm supposed to do. Literally, both of them. There's no identity for what they're trying to accomplish. They genuinely look like they've just been thrown in to something that nobody trusts, and they're just walking around like, what should I do now? And that's not their to me, that's not their problem. It feels like it's not their problem at all. It feels like just because of something else going on, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I think it's just not. This is just not the time to be pointing fingers at individuals on this team. Like if people are saying that Meadow underperformed because his stats were bad, or even Mixwell or whatever, like it's not like they were. I felt like at no point it's not like they were really doing anything to help Mixwell. Like they weren't setting him up. Now, was that on him? Was that on them? I don't know. But they were just so all over the place. Sometimes it's fun to mold. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, but also, I mean, there was definitely, I don't know how much of that was based off their team structure. Because that's the problem, right? Is that the structure looks so bad because a lot of times, like, how are you supposed to set up Mixwell when a lot of times it felt like they would be execing on a site and Mixwell would just be sitting back opping. He would just be watching them exec on the site. He would be like Kefri in split main, watching them exec with the op. I would be like,
Kurt, can you pull that clip up for old time's sake?
I just be like, what's happening
Kefri
here? And I don't know
split.
but I don't know if that was because
Jett.
if that was like Mixwell himself like wanting to get set up and they weren't setting him up, so he's like, okay, fuck it, I guess I'm opping, or the communication was so poor that they didn't know how they wanted to set up their exec. Like it was just. It was strange. It was very strange what we were witnessing here. Moments that can't be explained. Bermuda Triangle game.
Yeah, if one of you can send Kurt that Kefri clip, if you know where it is, I don't
even know where it's at. I just remember
I need
just
to see
etched
that
into my
again for
memory.
old time's
It's just
sake.
etched into my memory, so I don't remember where it's at though.
You can just close your eyes and picture it.
Yeah, I could.
I
could.
Guys,
I think
you know what? I want to stop. I want to stop being. Oh, Balla found it. Perfect. We're playing in the background, guys. I want to stop being a part of the problem. We can complain all day. We can complain and blame. But what do we do to fix the problem? I mean, look at Split of the past. By the way,
there is Mixwell opping in main. Watching the team exec
against Alliance POV.
It's not. It wasn't this bad. No, it wasn't. It wasn't this bad. It was not that bad. Viewers, it wasn't as bad as this. But it reminded me of this because of the poor execs. The execs were really poor. It just reminded me of this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't this.
Even like the UI on the top really shows how dated this is. I
know.
As well.
This is ancient gameplay.
This is like beta gameplay.
I mean, this clip will exist forever, and so long as Valorant is played, this clip will be remembered.
Some say he's still there.
It's better with the audio too because he's literally he's like, "Go guys!"
He's calming as his team runs in, and he just sits in main.
So stupid. Okay, but genuinely,
to answer your question, I'm not gonna stop being angry and complaining because, in my opinion,
at least
these issues cannot
this is the
be
problem
solved
of society
anymore. They can't be solved anymore. They needed to be fixed in the off season. They needed to have an actual plan about how to deal with the personalities on the team. What do you want Mixwell to be doing? What do you want Nookie to be doing? Can both of those coexist at the same time? Can Kellogg's actually grow as a player on your team at the same time with the personalities that are on your team? Answer those questions. Build around the answer to those questions. Whether that's cut everybody except Nookie and Avova and go for it, or that's sell Nookie to somewhere else, because he's a great player. And keep Mixwell, keep Kellogg's, keep Avova, try to get a good core around them, something like that. That's where I think that, and maybe that's not even what the problems were in the first place, but those types of problems I think are what is underlying around G2 right now. And until those are solved, I don't see them going crazy with their individual skill, even though it is absolutely insane.
There's a name, isn't it, when it comes to like trying to like statistically problem solve, where if you have too many different variables all being changed at once, you won't get the answer to what the problem is originally. Like you can't realistically go, if somebody turns to me and says, oh, this G2 team is so much better because they dropped Mixwell. It's like, could it be that they're not playing Fracture, that they don't go down a map instantly in somebody's best of threes that gets into their head? It could be that.
Sure.
But when you're changing out multiple different things, maybe there's some agent changes as well with G2 that they start to do stuff in the closed qualifier. Maybe they start playing maps that we never got to see last time around because they only played 2B or threes. It's the, I guess for me, it's that aspect of like, yeah, these things take time anyway. It's the first official, which is going to be messy for a lot of different teams. It wouldn't surprise me if you see like Fnatic or Gambit or Ascend looking really shaky in their first game of Challengers because it's their first game in a while. So, and it's the first official of these guys playing together. It's a totally different environment to what they've been used to scrimming. So kind of give it the time and let it breathe. If you want to keep playing Fracture, sure. But don't be like, oh, we're panic changing our map pool, changing our like our Jett player. We're gonna get our coach to IGL. We'll get our coach in the server next time. So you know what I mean? Like, if you change up too much, you can't realistically work out what the problem is. So it's unfair for Mixwell, especially for people to go, oh, well, they won without you, so you're the issue. It might be something completely different, especially with how much G2 are looking to have changed from that first best of 3.
But this is G2, Ryan. We can't let it breathe. We have to immediately suffocate it like a candle, put it out, and then just do whatever the fuck we want. Like I don't know. I do agree though that it's probably early to see where this roster goes, and I think they have some nice pieces. And Nuki's still disgusting. Like God, he had one of the greatest clutches ever on Fracture. On Fracture, on a retake, he had one of the greatest clutches ever versus Vitality. It was like a 4v1 or some shit. He pushed the Viper ult, killed one, picks up another gun, gets the other 3. It was so fucking disgusting. It was just and off the res, and they had res off the wall.
That's the coach clip.
It was that was the coach clip. I think that was the Simpson clip. It was so good. He's so fucking good.
Yeah,
I think they really have legit with Hoodie and Meadow, and like Meadow, I don't think was like amazing. They didn't have necessarily like tons of standout moments, but like he was fine. Like I think he was solid, and like they have some good, some solid pieces here. It's just their structure. It's not good. So there is a team here. We must find it.
There is definitely you're right. There is definitely a team. There is in fact a team.
The gun pickup is the best part.
Yeah, the gun pickup's nice. But also it was just a heads up move to push the Viper ult. Like it was just such a heads up fucking move.
So clean. Well, G2 are playing today. I think. Are they done playing today?
They won all
or yesterday, if you're listening, if you're watching now. But
G2
are playing the second.
Here's why they've lost tomorrow, which is today for the audience. Like they got boomed out by
against
like Vala Magulis, or whatever they were called, the team that beat Heretics. By the way, we could talk about Heretics for a whole fucking section as well. Those games last week were exceptional. They got knocked out on day 1. And BDS as well, they got invited to the closed qualifier, lost both their games, went down to the open bracket, because if you're bottom 2, you don't get invited to closed. And then they lost on the first day as well to a team called Who Cares? Who Cares? How is that allowed to happen?
I hear AZK is getting signed to Who Cars.
Oh, really? Who Cars, huh? Getting them.
Well, these teams...
Ryan, they just wanted to play in the French VLR. That's going to pop off, so it's...
Yeah, true.
I'm sure Happy would love that.
You didn't see the layers. Well, one team that I never thought I'd be talking about on this podcast, since we talked about on episode, 9, ooh,
it
God
really was.
is joining big.
9.
What's he gonna do? And he did something. It only took, I think, about maybe 60 or so episodes, and we talked about big again. But here we are. We're talking about big. They're finally pretty good. And also, I saw Ryan. You This is it's on Ryan's Twitter, I think. Kurt, you had
the tripwire.
with the tripwire on Ascent.
Oh my god!
You had said that you were going to gift some level of, I can't remember how many subs. If
5 subs. Let's not increase it.
Okay, 5 subs.
However many subs.
5 subs if this tripwire worked and caught a Jett, and then it ended up working in one of the matches. If you want to pull that clip up, Kurt, it's kind of funny.
It's a good trip.
On Ryan's Twitter.
There
it is.
It's a very innovative
my Twitter.
trip.
Yes.
So shout out to Zesh that spotted it.
You could see it for a second there. It was up high for a Jett that updraft dashes. And in that clip, there's Ryan saying, boy, I'll give him 5 subs if that gets a kill. And that was 3 days in the past. And then in the future clip, you'll never guess what happens next.
This is me trying to like TikTok edit, like the full face reveal thing. And then it's not only that, it's the fact that this was used in like probably the biggest game that Big has had in Valorant so far. And it still works. And I don't know how much of this is like Caspi sort of doing it or whether it was God B, because somebody pinged that spot to do it. The fact it gets the kill, it's just, what on earth are Big smoking for that to work? That's the thing. Like they were beautiful to watch in some of the games. Yeah. Like I really enjoyed like watch partying them in their earlier games because they had some really good stuff. Like Godby had some insane 5-head, 6-head lineups with silver darts, which would like bounce. So it was like from Icebox A on the attack, and it would bounce all the way to get behind belt. So if there was a Reyna that pushed up or a Viper to ult, it would catch them, and you could like shock dart it or have it bounce another time to go onto the A site. But then there'd be some times where I'd use that lineup and it would just bounce to the spawn and go up into the air and then it's gone. Like it was a very frustrating team to watch because you saw so much good stuff with them, especially with Twiston, who is one of the most like insane underrated players in Europe that is now on a really good roster. The fact that they got better and better as the tournament went on was the biggest surprise. And God B was almost like bonker levels of meme when it came to like IGL and underperformances, but he also showed up big time when it came to not only like his strat, his calling, but his mechanical skill as well. He had some mental rounds.
The tripwire thing, by the way, is just like every map, actually. They're putting high tripwires to catch Jetts. Like every single map. On Breeze was the same way. They were putting the similar tripwire on top of the first pillar by ladder, catching Jetts, dashing up on there. It's just something that they're doing. It's part of the meta now for them. They have phenomenal attack side rounds, similar to Guild, but almost cleaner, which is weird. And I think it has to be because I don't think that the firepower is as good for the team. But they do have 2 players, Twiston and Obnox, have impressed the shit out of me. Just crazy good the entire time.
Such a funny
probably
name.
Yeah, he has, that dude
There's
has
some very funny names on Big in general,
knockers.
with Gob B, Obnox, also
You know what the best part is for that?
Aslan.
I was talking to Zesh about it, and he said, "Do you like Goblin? Like, do you know what Gob B is from?" And he was like, "Gob, the Gob part is short for Goblin because that was his old username, and B is for a friend of his that had passed away, unfortunately, that he'd used to sort of iconize them in his username to remember them, which I think is really cool." But it was the fact that he said his full name is Goblin B. I was like, is this like a Douglas Apper thing where like people are going to be like, go on, Goblin B? And so I've started saying like, that's a Goblin round from Gob B. And yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's the best part of Big doing well, is just that we get to see good old Goblin B showing up and seeing what made him so exciting for a lot of people when he originally came over to Valorant. Because there was also a clip of him talking about like work ethic and how much time he puts in. And I don't think he originally wanted to sign Twiston onto the org because he was still at school and he wouldn't be able to prac as much. And he really wants to prac and doesn't want to play ranked, which I don't blame him for. So it's out of all of those teams, I think especially once you kind of get out of the 4 that went to Champions, Guild, maybe G2, you're looking at like Vitality, Big, Alliance, which is kind of like a bit of a drop-off in my opinion from like the quality of what these teams could do. But I think Big actually was maybe matched at a point where they could have really taken Guild to a really close series. I think they're not going to do great in challenges. There's some really scary teams in there, but I'm glad that they made it because it's an org that's put a lot of time and investment. And the opposite of G2, let it breathe, brought in these players, had them get better and better over time, not changed up too much. And they have a clear identity of how they want to play the game with God B. instead of G2 that's just changed up stuff dramatically. So it's a breath of fresh air in the EMEA community to see Big do as well as they have.
Yeah.
They're very nice. I do think they're pretty. I really liked also their play in both the squads that played here in the Vitality match, like Vac a bit as well. But in particular, I really liked how Big played around KO a lot when they did play KO. I think they did a really good job of using the knife for information. Like, it's quite standard to be like, oh, getting info with the knife. Remember when Steel did that? Remember when Steel got info with the knife? But I do think that like they actually did a really, really great job, and they were getting tons and tons of value out of it. So it was cool to see this team, which still I don't think overall like they're looking nearly as strong as Guild coming out of here, but they are looking like a pretty solid team with, you know, foundations that could improve. Definitely. Like, it's definitely not looking like a mechanical issue for them, more so a game sense and just an overall strategy issue. Moving forward.
I think it's the opposite.
Really, you think
I
it's
think
the
it's
opposite? I love their attack rounds, but I didn't love their defense that much.
No, I just
So
think that they had so many cool setups on defense. I agree with you that their defense wasn't as good, but I thought strategically they had the right ideas. It's just hard on defensive sides. It's hard to actually create a setup that's good strategically,
Yeah.
that works, and then to actually have it continue to work the entire time. Like, you constantly need to be adapting on defense. Whereas attack is different, right? Because you can play the default and then you can hit the execute, and hopefully your execute cover is layered enough that it covers everything throughout the entire time. But just because they had worse defensive sides, I don't think that means strategically it was bad.
that's fair. That is fair. But either way, the point being, I think they still have a lot of room to grow, right? They still have a lot of room to grow with this team, and they're not looking as strong as Guild coming out of it. But they had a lot of really cool ideas.
Yeah.
Sure.
And just like young talent to grow up to a point where they're strong. God B and Gazline as well. Played a bit more Jett. I wasn't a fan of his Jett overall, but like he had some good moments, I think, with the Astra when he was playing it. Like, I think just that sort of mix of the old versus new is working together really nicely. And yeah, I think Obnox is going to have big impact for this team going forward. I don't know how much of it you want to talk about, but also like I think Vitality is worth mentioning because they lost 2 best of 5s in 2 days, which is, you know, a lot of stress in itself to play those kind of games. But they looked a distinct different team from those qualifying games to what they were doing earlier on in the tournament. In fact, they beat Guild earlier on to send Big down to the losers bracket, right? So it's a shame that Vitality, for me at least, looks so good coming into the tournament. But as soon as they get to those big games, they completely seem to flop.
Yeah. We'll probably end up talking about Vitality a bit more after the next open qualifier concludes, because they do have another shot in that one, and they're definitely a favorite to make it through on the second round. Do you guys feel that? Do you feel that in the air? Anybody else?
What's that feeling?
Is
I
that
mean, are you
momentum?
talking about the obknockers that we just talked about?
No. Not the obknockers, but I can feel the momentum. You guys feel that momentum? I can feel it building.
I feel
Momentum.
it all the way from CIS region this time, though.
The formulas, they're
momentum
flowing.
Is building for FPX to have qualified through the CIS qualifier. They did it in a big reverse sweep as well. They won like 3 maps in a row. That's
and there
a
were
lot of
also
maps. How'd they do that?
blowouts. There were also blowouts the final 3 maps. Like,
Yeah.
It was kind of wild because the first 2 maps they lost very close, very tight, and then it's just destruction. The final 3 maps. Then they get over the hill, and it was just some sort of like roller coaster moment where you're just, and then they just kind of rolled after that.
Yeah.
Also, the cast, by the way, if you haven't seen the Valorant Russia cast, the casters were doing auto-tune. I don't know what they were saying, but during the cast, they were auto-tuning themselves.
Nobody watches CIS, so they can just get away with it.
During the bits, they were just like auto-tuning themselves.
I've wanted to see somebody try that.
It was extremely straight, but it was hilarious. I was like, "What's happening?"
I watched the semifinals game between Avi and FPX as well, and the casters are just like randomly like talking in English for like 10 minutes straight. Just like, it's the funniest thing. I want to meet those guys real bad.
Okay. Someone tell me about FPX
You
right now.
tell me, Wyatt.
I have nothing to say. I don't watch FPX until they start winning, and now they win. But now I'll watch.
You gotta keep up.
I don't know.
You've got to expect these kind of things. I think the funniest thing about it, I was talking to Doombros, and after they were 2-0 down, Artis was running into tech problems, and he went to the 15-minute threshold where the coach needs to stand in. So there was a potential, if things went really wrong, that we would have seen Doombros playing the Jett on this team, a coach that has been very anti-duelist for the most part with this team, forced to play Jett in a best-of-5 grand final to qualify for challenges. Luckily, Artis managed to fix the game, and also he looks like Ice Paper Hands is back. Never mind FPX. Ice Paper Hands looks the best when he's coming from CIS, and I think Artis is now on for a redemption arc potentially.
So okay, so what is FPX? What are they doing right now? How have they managed to win this? Have they managed to level up from where they were at when we last saw them, and they were playing Fracture and not playing any duelists, and it was just
Well, that didn't happen. You just ignore that. Like,
right. Okay. I would. That's a reality I want to live in. I can buy that.
Maybe we just think about stage 3 or something for
Okay.
them.
It never
They
happened.
looked really disciplined, though. I will say during this match, the things they look good is that they looked really disciplined. They knew how to play a slow game, and they still had like really nice. I think they had very explosive execs, and the individual skill is still there. Obviously, like when you watch Zippin and Duelist, when you get to see artists like have his moments as well, like Ryan was talking about. I think there's some and Xiao. I mean, they have still solid individual skill. They have they really know how to slow down the game and like play it slow and just like try to bait out rotations. They did it a lot actually, though it happened to them too on Bind versus Navi, where they kind of got baited into a rotate as well. So it's kind of flip, either side of the coin on that one. But they looked overall pretty solid. I don't know if they look like a juggernaut though, like they used to. Like when we were initially creating the momentum of the FPX. When we were all pushing the FPX card slowly,
we were creating
pushing it, and like I don't, and it was picking up speed. Like they kind of
we forgot to build the rust of the tracks as they went down.
But I don't think they look like a juggernaut coming out of this. They look solid, but I don't know if they would necessarily even beat if they would beat like a guild right now. So that's my take on them currently.
It's hard to tell, because they're not playing the same teams or similar teams at all since they switched to CIS. Whether their form is better than it used to be, but I will say, when we think about what the problems for FPX were leading into this year, or basically last year, they choked a lot, right? Like they would always fail in very important moments where it just looked like they were tilted or. Well, I don't know what the problem was. That was number one. Number two, they were absolutely lost in the fucking sauce. That we can include Red Bull in, where they're just completely doing crazy things with their compositions, crazy things with their strats, which sometimes work, sometimes don't. But because of that, nobody is actually set on a roll. They don't have any real Jett player or something like that. Everybody's playing smokes. Literally. That entire team probably played every single role. Every player played every single role. And then third, in my opinion, they over-prepped for every single match. Right? Every single match, they had a unique comp that they're coming into it with counter strats, all that stuff. Those three problems, I think are maybe outside of the tilting problem, are all still kind of there, but they're also slightly fixed. So Opium is there. Just I'm not huffing yet. Crazy.
Sure. Yeah. I
just lightly breathing.
Yeah, just a light, small little hit of the hopium. Not going too crazy yet. I understand. Yeah. See, I just simply I just after Red Bull, I just refuse to intake more FPX, hopium, copium. Any kind of FPX related just inhalant device, I just simply refuse to take in more. But now my interest is peaked. I mean, do you guys think that? I mean, Connor said that he thinks the guild are still better. I mean, how do you guys think they stack up against some of the other top teams in EU right now, based on this?
From what I saw, I think they're better than guild.
Wow.
Okay. What about you?
I
what,
think.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
So tell me about it.
I think the reason why is that I think they're more well-rounded, which makes sense because they didn't make many changes, right? Demasick is gone and Artis is also in as well. So I think that they're more well-rounded, they're more experienced. It feels like their reads are fantastic. It feels like they have a deep map pool, even tactically. Like somehow they put in a shit ton of work with this roster already. I think they're better. I think they're at least more ahead right now than Guild. I don't know about their peak though. That's where the question is.
Okay. Is Ryan okay? I got confused there for a second. Mr. Central?
Ryan, are you okay?
He's the best part too is that he was still on my screen in like our view, and he was frozen. And he was just looking really forlorn, just like off to one side.
I just saw him fading in and out. Like I was just like, oh, he's just like, fuck this conversation.
Sadly, Ryan is gone. I mean, I thought that the saddest moment of this episode would be finding out that NA only has 2 slots, but now this is the saddest moment of the episode.
Yeah.
This is so sad.
He is now Ryan decentralized. No longer RyanCentral.
No longer in the center.
He's an NFT.
He's on the blockchain. Let's go.
Do we just, Kurt, what should we do? You want to pause for a sec? All right, let's pause for a second.
Pause.
I don't even. Are we back? Oh, welcome. I did say to hit it, didn't I? We're back, and Ryan's back. You love to see it.
I just got Thanos snapped out the call, I think, but yeah. Were we still talking about FPX?
No.
We were.
It depends. Do you want to or not?
I think we'll leave it for challenges, you know? We'll let the story write itself, but I think that the reason why they lost to KPI early on is because KPI didn't have any VODs, so it was difficult for FPX to prepare. Meanwhile, all of their games were streamed, so different kettle of fish. But yeah, I'm excited to see more of this FPX team. They were a team that, on playing Ascent 3 times through their qualifiers, played 3 different comps, I think it was. So you actually look through the maps they play, like they play Icebox and played some Chamber one time. So I think this team is going to bring a lot of interesting stuff when it comes to different comps against different teams, which, you know, for me as an analyst is really interesting because you get a bit of more, okay, they're picking the Chamber instead of a Killjoy and Icebox because they want to achieve this win condition instead, which I think is a part of the game that we're not seeing an awful lot of. So it just adds a bit more like spice and color to, especially maps like Icebox that can be really mundane with agent selects on their own. So I'm happy to see them. It wouldn't surprise me though if Navi don't make it for whatever reason. Like it seems that the competition in CIS is looking a lot more competitive than maybe before. But I'd like to see Navi in because I think JD, especially on that roster, looks fantastic. So they're going to take a bit of a while to gel. And they're just a good team anyway. Like JD and Clouds, who I think played together on Pro Crowd with Dirk way back when. That's a monster super team in itself. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do when they have a bit more time under their belt.
I may consider watching FPX in the future. Now, we had to leave this next topic in because Balla just crushed the title on this one. I mean, this title, this is a bar.
Oh, fuck no. You didn't actually use this title, did you?
Supermassive Blaze their way out of Turkey. Wow. I mean, that's a sick title. I didn't watch this. I mean, listen, I didn't watch this. Balla, tell me about how they
Balla was in the
Supermassive blazed their way out of Turkey.
No. Wait.
What
Before you start, I got a bit of a game for you. If you go to the best of 5 series, okay. And because obviously it was Supermassive Blaze playing up against Fireflux.
Whoa!
I'm gonna make sure. I'm glad I did that now and not on an actual broadcast. I swear. So yeah, Fireflux Esports. Go down and look at one of the players' names and tell me how you pronounce it. The one that starts with JN.
Oh my god.
Is it? Wait, no. I thought it said Juvenile, but no. Let's see. Junavice.
It's I'm letting all of chat have their guess. Why am I letting chat have a guess? They're just gonna type the name. They can't pronounce it. It's
Junicle.
Yeah, it's Genevice. So I'm excited to see him potentially in EMEA challenges because Lord knows what some of the guys are going to call him overall. I think it's one of the coolest names ever. But one thing to mention about Supermassive Blaze, they picked up CyberX, who was the IGL for Kevlar Esports, which was the old team of Izzy and Brave. So this Kevlar Esports team is actually probably making bank, but this team is now 3/5 of that, as well as picking up Glove that used to be on Oxygen, and then also Zistu that used to be on Oxygen as well. Two underperforming players, I'd say, but really good and not involved in Twitch scams, which I think helps. So yeah, it's a much more solid team, and I think it has a better atmosphere around it. Because Supermassive Blaze used to be really, really good, but then I think they sort of broke into different factions and disliked how each part of the team worked, and so they were effectively disbanded by the time that they played EMEA LCQ, which was one of the reasons why they maybe looked a bit underperforming. So yeah, seeing SMB come back and have the exciting parts of Brave and Izzy still on that roster, as well as adding more new blood that's looking really good and some more older veteran players to fill in the gaps. I think it makes for a team that actually could do a lot of damage and make, depending on how many slots we get, maybe make a Masters event. It wouldn't surprise me if this team actually comes in and does a lot of damage.
No chance.
Balla
No
was
chance.
typing
I was gonna say
today, and he was just like, "Bro, like he." Was
Okay,
saying some
okay. We don't
wild-
need to get into that.
No, I'm not saying that. Like I'm not saying like it was not bad. It was just like I'll be I'll be straight up. I didn't have time to watch this with all the other things happening, and I don't know if Wyatt you did either. But Balla was just describing his process as he watched the VODs. It was just like his open review, and it just sounded funny.
Yeah,
Like what was
the
happening.
grand finals was way different than the semifinals, but I was very confused on the semifinals. Let's just say the first time that SMB played against Firefuck Esports, it was just
No, you're gonna get it stapled in my mind to the point that it just becomes a thing.
okay. You won't have to cast them until LCQ. No worries. It's fine.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't see anything. Sure, maybe some of the pieces like fit, maybe like on a chemistry level or anything like that, but I didn't see the benefit of that more than I saw from the SMB team from before. And the SMB team from before, I think, had after they came out and dominated and did very well to qualify for Berlin. After that, I think people understood what the team was. And it's a team that isn't going to bring strategically much to the table. They're going to bring a lot of firepower. They're going to bring good pacing and good, decent fundamentals. But beyond that, and I think it's necessary, especially in EU, for a team to have more. It feels like the same team to me, even with 3 player changes, which is crazy. That's mind-boggling. But with that being said, Izzy is still nasty. Brave is still nasty. The rest of I was impressed as hell with CyberX. Actually, like, I really like CyberX. When I talk about like the problems that Leo had, I feel like CyberX had a play for everything on Sova. Like every single time, it's like, oh, what the fuck? He just hit a shock dart from there. Okay, cool. But the problem was that it was always by himself. There was nobody else doing anything with his shocks or anything like that. That's the problem with SMB. There's just nothing behind it, and that's why I disagree with you, Ryan. I think this team is a barely missed playoff or even bottom of the pack.
I mean, Izzy looks like he's going dumb stupid in those clips, but I mean that's not in anything new. I guess he was cracked before. I suppose he should probably stay cracked. I mean, that was never really the problem with SMB, was it? Their ability to hit shots individually. All right, well, I'm not excited about SMB. What? I mean, listen.
You're gonna be posting.
I'm here to speak my truth,
for
okay?
SMB, but in Turkish on your Twitters. I'm telling you, like, they're the kind of team that I think could catch a lot of the others by surprise, especially some of the bigs, and maybe even like a Fnatic as well if they haven't. Like, I feel that there's some teams that stylistically are just gonna get sort of lost and not sure how to deal with it.
I actually, well, not the bigs, in my opinion. I think Big has just too much actual play time experience right now to be caught off guard by a team like that. If they do, then that's a really bad situation considering how God B is prepping. But I do agree with you that I think they can catch some teams off by surprise, especially those teams that haven't played officials in a while. Fnatic is one of those. Team Liquid, one of those. Like those types of teams. Even Ascend, for example. like those are the types of teams that I think can be caught off guard just because they don't have that official experience. That
So you don't think they'd beat like FPX or Navi? Assuming that Navi qualifies for week 2.
Yeah, I mean, FPX has their own issues, so yeah, I think they could beat FPX, but Navi, probably not. I don't think so. I think Navi is better.
Okay. More importantly, listen, I might not be excited for Supermassive Blaze.
Go on.
But I'm gonna ask the question: is the Brazilian super team finally here? Has it finally arrived? Long have we awaited, and now it's finally here. I mean, the Brazilian qualifiers started, and the team that is surely going to at some point be announced as Loud, with Saucy, Sodhawk, Auspus, Les, Pancata played in the open qualifier. They went dumb. They went stupid. They won all the games. They beat the new MIBR roster, who have a cracked out. I don't know. The Jett player is one of those cracked out Zoomers, like 5 years old or whatever, just hitting every shot. But they beat them. And then moving on to the closed qualifier. Not a whole ton to talk about. We'll probably talk about it more when they actually get to the closed qualifier. But I thought it was, I don't know, I just thought it was worth mentioning. Any of the new NIP roster that got announced, they made it through in the Brazilian open qualifier as well. Connor, are you excited about the new Brazilian super team of Loud? Any thoughts? Dude, you are so little.
Yeah,
what are you doing being so small?
The mere mention of Brazilian super teams gives me osteoporosis, and my bones shrink. My bones just collapse, and then I become much smaller as a human person. I mean, here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that if it is a Brazilian super team, I'm really happy. I'm excited for them. I hope they do well. In the meantime, much like the impending apocalypse that shows up every 3 to 4 years, I'll believe it when I see it. You know.
Okay, come on. You weren't a little bit nervous in 2012? A little shaky? Ooh, no. Nothing?
My mental stability was at an all-time high in 2012. I think actually I'm far more likely to succumb to apocalypse paranoia now than I was in 2012.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
I
think
there's not a whole lot going on with the apocalypses now, though, is there?
No, I mean, well, that's because you're just living it. Microplastics are at an all-time high. We're becoming sterile as the human race. I mean, it's over. It's over for us. We're done. Like, it's already done, guys. I'm like, the apocalypse has happened. You don't even know. We've lost to Tupperware. So get owned. Get owned, humanity.
Balla, anything on the Brazilian super team? Anything on 2012? I don't know.
They lost a map. I don't know.
They lost them, so they're not a super team.
Yeah, no,
that's it. They lost them.
I don't know, bro. Like I'll wait. I'm excited to watch the groups because they look fucking brutal as hell. But no, I didn't partake in watching the Brazilian super team and the hype.
We'll circle back to this in a bit. Ryan, you got any fleeting thoughts on the Brilliant super team?
No, I don't think so. It's not an area that I've kept up on closely, to be fair. The question I have is there any teams that have made like international events before that are still together, like a Sharks, or is there still like a Vikings core with the players that didn't go to Loud, or has everybody effectively changed where they are?
The Brazilian scene exploded, and all the teams are pretty much different. Sharks are relatively similar, actually. But
Sharks are similar, yeah.
Yeah,
pretty much every other team has just
Keed.
Oh yeah, and Keed. Yeah, and Keed. Sorry,
Keed actually signed MW0 as well, didn't they?
Keed are the same as they were in Champions, but the rest of the scene very different. Whole lot of swaps in the region, but. Again, we'll circle back to it when we get to the closed qualifier. Just wanted to see if anyone was getting excited like me. Just wanted to see if there's a little bit of, I don't know, just a little temperature check. You know what I mean? The state of the meta. Patch 4.0. What are we making of the meta right now? I'm going to say it. Jett's still good. How about that? That's crazy. Still really good agent. And I mean, surely Jett's just going to dominate this year as well, right? I mean, that seems inevitable. I have to say, one of the things I really like about the meta right now that I think improved drastically in the like last couple months of 2021 into 2022, I think the state of the initiators is great. I think it's in a really good place right now. I think introducing Fracture helped, gives Breach a nice little kind of home map with a lot of relevancy. I think that the little buffs to KO actually make a big difference with flashes, etc. And the little nerfs to Sky all kind of came out around the same time. And, I mean, they might have actually all come out at the same time. I can't remember. But they were all in close time frame with the patches and the release of Fracture. And it has left the initiators, I think, in a really good state. So that's one of the things I'm definitely really happy about with the meta right now.
I think Sentinels are the same. I think Killjoy, Cypher, even Chamber, like they're finding a good amount of the space for them. I think for me, I really like that we have Chamber and Neon in the game now, because Jett is too good at multiple different things. So I think Chamber as an agent is like, if you still want to up and be mechanically solid, you can still do that and not be on a duelist. You can actually do all of that on a Sentinel role if you want to, and still have utility that falls into that category. What if you're a Jett player that's really good at entering, but you don't like to op? Well, now you might have Neon. Like, I don't think at this stage her kit is good enough to do that, but let's say she gets buffed in the future, you might have some teams that play a lot of Jett as an entry, but don't like to op, using that instead. I think that the Jett being OP is not something that you want to fix in an instant, because I think that could make an even bigger issue in the future. But if you have now agent choices that can take some of the elements away from Jett and put those players that like to op on Chamber a bit more, or put in entry players on Neon, or if Phoenix gets buffed, or if New Euro is going to be really good, I think that those slow kind of changes is nice. My problem is more with the controllers and Astra Viper just being way too good. Despite, it's not even a sense of like they're so meta. It's also to a point where Omen and Brimstone are much more interesting, engaging to watch and play, that I don't think it's good for the health of the game having Astra be a 90% pick rate, because I don't find it fun to play. I don't really find it that fun to watch. And if I'm a pro player, I'm probably thinking the same too, right? If there's a bit of health to bring those other agents back up a square, I think you've got a really healthy meta, like, and the best it's ever looked. That's where my pain points are, instead of Jett being too strong, because I think that is going to adjust over time.
Yeah.
Sure. What do you think, Balla?
I think the controller meta definitely, like, I'm not gonna say I don't like playing it, because I fucking like playing Astra pretty much, just because it's like free wins in ranked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is very difficult to comprehend the rest of the meta with Astra in it. In terms of the other agents, I think you're right about not having it, or it's not fun to watch. To a certain extent, it is fun to watch, just to see the different combos. One thing I think that's really interesting and very fun to watch is recently a lot of, like, for example, the Guild Vitality. Was it one of the EU games? There was the Breach Mirror on Split. That was, it was the big Vitality rematch.
Yeah.
And that both matches actually. That was fun because they were comboing Astra with Breach in the similar way to where Astra started. A lot of people were comboing Breach with her just because they're like, oh, Faultline plus Gravwell. That has come back into the meta on more than just Fracture, in a way that is very, very fun, because it's trappy type of plays. I think teams should be focusing on implementing that sort. I think there's more to be explored with that combo, with that agent combo. And probably even more than just that as well. Obviously, Neon coming into the mix will add some synergy with Astra. Everything synergizes with Astra, which is, I think, one of the big problems in the meta right now. But
Yep.
I think teams that take advantage of trying to find more synergies with her will be very good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is just endless Astra synergy that just continues to make her so relevant. Yeah, it's tough, and Viper's still so strong. I mean, yeah, I agree. Those are the 2 points of the current meta, of the current gameplay, that I do want to see a bit of change. I don't even think Viper necessarily needs a huge change. I am just pretty firm on the belief that her ult needs to be tweaked a little bit, because it is just too powerful. that's kind of where I stand with Viper. Honestly, I wouldn't really even know where to begin with Astra. It's tough because I think she might be in the same place as Jett, where it's like, well, you're just going to constantly change. Like, it's 50 more credits. This is 100 more credits. Like,
I think she just can't be as global if you want to try to change something.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, like, she gets an iPad too. Like
I also would
Brimstone.
rather see Brimstone and Omen buffed. I don't like, because I think that's been the problem, right? Is that
Sure.
Omen, for example, has been neutered in comparison to how good he was like before, like with how quickly his smokes go out and this paranoia being more expensive. And I think they reverted that. But you kind of get the point where for playing ranked as well, like watching a game versus playing it, I think you don't want to make them two very separate things because then you run into like Overwatch levels of problems, right? I think if you keep making Astra more and fun, then you're not going to get people moving over to Omen or Brimstone. You're going to get people not playing Controller at all instead, right? So I think that's another reason why I like Chamber is you naturally get more people playing the Sentinel role in ranked because it's an agent that's like, oh my God, you can pop off and do some crazy stuff on here, but also actually fulfill a role on a team with your utility that you're not locking 4 duelists or whatever. And I think as well, so much of that is on agent select, and like one of the other things that's coming out in the future is like cascading agent select too, which one thing that I think doesn't help with how stale the meta is that you can't actually see what the other team is picking whilst you're picking, like a pick a draft phase in like League of Legends, for example, which I think in ranked games would make it a lot less stressful. Like if this is Shark Tank and I'm pitching to you like Sharks on this, the problem that I find with playing ranked is that people give up way too quickly. And so I think that is made worse when I, for example, lock in Solver because I want to play an agent that is, you can do a lot of different stuff with it. You can have impact, but you can also play like a team role. But nobody on my team has selected a Viper on Icebox. And I'm sat there wishing, oh shit, if I'd known this, I would have gone Viper. Or if I'd seen what the enemy comp was, I could use that to dictate. First of all, I'd get rid of the whole when you lock in an agent, you can't change it, because I think that's silly. That shouldn't be a thing. You should be able to change your agent if you need to, especially if you've locked in Viper and you need another agent on your team. But I also think like at a pro scene, imagine this, you've got Fnatic versus FPX. They have rough ideas on what they play on these maps because they've done their anti-stratting, but then you see the other team actually picking up a different agent, then you might also want to pick up something to try and counter that. The whole discussion recently has been about pick and bans, especially with the Knights tournament coming up. I don't think you have bans. I think you have picks where you can see what the other team is picking, because I think that enables a bit more, do we stick to our overall plan or do we see that the enemy's actually changing stuff up? We should do the same. Because I think the staleness comes from that, is both teams going, we're going to lock this in because we think that this other team's going to lock that in. And then they both just play it safe and lock in their usual compositions. That's what I'd want to see from the game when it comes to the health of it, not necessarily just to agent balance. Especially with playing ranked, I hate locking in an agent and going, I should have picked something else. We're 4-0 down, and one of my team is like automatically disconnected or said, we're done, start surrendering, because our agent select was so bad, and then we had a post out because of it too.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's my pitch.
I mean, I think that's an interesting
I've been wanting
pitch.
that forever.
I like that.
I'm buying. How much money do you need?
What are you buying the whole thing?
Guys,
Are you
start our
buying
own
the
game
whole,
studio.
the
I
whole
suppose
package?
that'll put the money towards it.
I just want
Like
the pick system.
There's a chance that if they don't do that with the cascading agent select, it gets a whole lot worse, because you actually want to play a normal age. You're like fifth and you're like, I'll fill whatever, but your team has already picked 4 duelists and they're arguing amongst each other because one of them wanted Neon and they didn't get it, so they're going to pick Euro and start throwing. Like off the bat, you've lost the game. Like that's a frustrating experience. And I think that if you try and implement other agent ban systems over that, you don't get to the root cause of the issue, which is you are bringing players into a ranked game, if you're thinking of it just like normal plebeians playing, with no control over anything other than selecting an agent, and then the rest is done and out there. It makes sense for games like Overwatch where you can change your agent to not show what the enemy's playing to begin with. But if you're locking in an agent full time, I think you should see what the other team is picking, and you should also have the ability to change your pick within. Obviously, you could just be like, I'm going to lock in Euro, see what the enemy pick. Psych, I'm going to actually pick up Astra.
Stem from ranked. I don't want to be Mark Cuban anymore. Let me switch for a second. Let me pitch you something.
Okay.
abolish ranked. Get that
That's
shit
not
out of
even-
video games.
That's not even like a solution.
It's
That's not even,
terrible.
this man's trying to bring up anarchy, anarcho-capitalism here.
No, we just scrim. Let's go.
That's not going to work. I feel like also I do agree with the cascading thing though, because but the thing is, primarily a lot of those issues. I don't even think your changes are bad, Ryan. I think there's like a lot of very good ideas there. It's just a lot of these issues when it comes to like, oh, these guys are instalocking duelists. It's like, if you get people that are going to instalock duelists, they're not going to change the instalock duelists just because you can give them everything available, like every resource available. You can give them a hotline to go talk to fucking. They could go talk to Nats on speed dial or something, right? And they would still instalock duelists in ranked. They would still do it. It doesn't matter like what the resources are available to them. It's like there's still going to be it's a bad faith. There's still going to be like people that are just going to do whatever they want to do in ranked, and like it won't really change if it's cascading hero pick, instantaneous hero pick. Like it just gets more annoying with cascading, though. I will agree, because you're literally watching yourself get trolled in slow motion. You're just watching yourself get trolled in slow motion because like the duelists are getting picked. You're at the bottom of the list. It's like, well, whatever.
I think like there's been a few series of maps. I remember, I think it was Nip versus Heretics, where Nip had clearly anti-stratted for some composition to come out of Heretics. I think it was with Raze on Icebox, and then they came out with Reyna. And like Nip's game from there was just, well, we had all of these ideas on how to counter a Raze. We even changed our comp to compensate for that. They've almost like lost out of that. Like obviously that's like a bit hyperbole and over embellished, but you get the point where
Summon FC too in First Strike as well. Same thing.
Yeah, it's almost like
guys.
I don't know if you found it the same, like Balla, when it came to agent select from champs, but it was just monotonous at a point, because it's like we know what they're gonna pick because they always pick this. Maybe they would pick something else if they knew that what they were playing up against might be something different. Like you've got to inspire that level of flexibility across different agents.
That's not a stale meta though. That's just a stale agent select process.
Yeah, but I think that you want to empower it is what I mean. Like you want to empower the innovative sides of it instead of bringing something like agent bans in where you're forcing innovation.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I
don't think that agent bans are like completely dead on arrival, but
I really agree. Actually, for whenever we talk about agent balance, I think it's like maybe it's just from the games that I've played or whatever it is. The community sentiment is typically just things that are strong have to get nerfed. But I really do agree that you don't want to just nerf Astra and make for things more expensive or whatever, and then it's not fun to play Astra. But yeah, making Brim and Omen more powerful and have more ideally. Yeah, ability to do their own cool playmaking within their kit, but also still be an effective controller, smoker for their team, but be more powerful and more viable. That is preferable, I think. I think it's more fun to balance the game in that way, but it's just so often the immediate sentiment, or I don't know, your brain just jumps to things too good.
But it's a little bit harder though, right?
But
because it's just like a law of.
Yeah, it's just we're not game devs.
It's just it's just a law of entropy. It's like once the box is open and the glitter is, it's just all fucking out there, right? It's way harder to put the glitter back in the box than it is to open the box and spill the glitter. And that's the issue with like things like Astra, is that like Astra, there are no current downsides for her kit, and she brings so much to the table that.
So wait, should to shoot glitter bombs out of her gravity well?
No, two head. No. I'm simply stating that because we've now given a kit that's so universally good, and also because like her smokes are like global, she has so many different combos, she has an amazing ult. It's a lot harder than to be like, well, how do we empower our other agents to be the same level as Asher without just giving a similar to same kit, right?
Yeah,
that's sort of the problem with
without
power
making them OP as well, to the point where you could run Astra Brim and that be a meta, and then you're like, shit, what do we do? Like this has got way too out of hand. I think the thing about Omen and Brimstone is though, you don't need to worry about making them fun, because I think they're fun naturally anyway. And I also think that they lean into stylistic ways. Like Brimstone is a lot more aggressive, a lot more execute heavy, because you can put down those smokes instantaneously alongside each other. Omen's sort of a bit of a middle ground lurky approach, and Astra's more like hunkering down areas, holding off defaults and playing the mind games almost. And Viper's sort of there to fit in whatever's needed across different maps. I think the map meta is actually pretty good because you get to see Breach actually shining in areas like Fracture. And then because teams are playing more Breach, they go, we can make this work on Split. And so you see it on Split. And then you see it on maps like Bind, for example, that we saw some teams running it with. So I think in that sense, the maps do help and allow teams to get customized to certain agents to use them more in other maps. But I think controllers is the big one where I don't think they're too far off nailing it, but I would really like to see less Astra and more of the other agents because they offer something that Astra can. And I think that's done by like the tempo that they play out.
You know why this conversation pisses me off? And it's not anything that you guys are saying.
Okay.
Just that, like,
when
we talk about state of the meta, like, we're, number one, no, actually, I don't even want to start with this point. How are we so conditioned that, like, we're just always like, oh man, when I play ranked, like, I really fucking hate that Astra character. Instead of just being like, what should I work on in this meta? You know, like, I think that's a much more interesting question overall, like, than trying to be game devs and like.
Well,
because the game is the game.
What's your point? I don't understand.
The game is the game. Well, I'm just bored of the conversation. Number one, but also number two, I'd rather have a conversation about like, you know, because we're about like, the competitive scene and stuff. Like, what should teams be working on? You know, like what in the meta is something that people should be trying to take advantage of more so than anything else.
I mean,
like, should teams be working on the
Astra combos? On the fly,
Astra,
being able to combine util with your Astra to get cheeky picks
but
when you know players are in certain positions. Like when you see
6+ months.
No, okay, but there's 2 new agents that we haven't seen in comp really. I mean, unless you're in the weeds and watching Chamber plays. There's a map that really still hasn't been explored. Like how should the teams approach the map vetoes right now? Like, should teams be really working on fractures? Are people banning it too much? That's the type of conversation I think would be more interesting than
what? I spoke about this with Mini on the Watch Party Fnatic coach Mini. Because we were talking about like Sentinel players playing Sky on Bind, which really doesn't make any sense. And he was saying, like, realistically, players in the future should be locking into certain roles. So what I think he was suggesting is that they're changing up who's playing what for Fnatic. And it's more likely that we'd see maybe Magnum, instead of being on the Sky, on the Viper, which is what a lot of Sentinel players like Nats like to do. I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at teams to stop doing the weird shit where they're like playing Omen one map and then Phoenix on the other. It makes sense if you're Yampy and Team Liquid because they've been smoking stuff for so long that it's either it's going to work or Liquid are going to flop. But seeing when BDS did it, where Hoppy was playing Omen and then Phoenix and then Viper on different maps, he was literally playing different roles in the game, like Duelist, Initiator, Sentinel, depending on what map that they played. That pisses me off because I think that you want to see, like, at this point, it's just a Silver player. But now you're starting to see Silver players play a little bit of Sky on some maps to change it up, and then a bit of KO. And because of their map pool, they actually have maps like Split where they don't really play Silver at all. So they have to be good at something else. That's what I want to see. I want to see Boast as the IGL, but he is also the main controller player. So he's on the Astra, the Brimstone, kind of like Bone Cold is at the moment. But obviously, there's going to be some maps where they change over to Silver in some cases. That's what interests me. And if I'm a team and a pro, I want to look like, say for G2, I want to focus on who's playing what depending on different maps. And if we get into a meta where Yoru's good, who's going to be doing that? Because I don't want it to be the Sentinel player, for example, unless that's the role in the subset the teams are going for, right? So that's what I'd like to see teams work on, and Overwatch, Valorant lean towards more in the future of just not the roles in the game that Valorant dictate, but the roles on the team matching the agents a bit more instead of just being various across different maps.
Yeah. But I like Connor was just looking like Bruce Banner transforming slowly. He was struggling to transform an Infinity War.
Right it's
okay.
Just
Speaking of Overwatch, did we talk about why Brandon and Josh aren't here?
I mean, Josh is off just being in love. It's
because they got bought by Microsoft.
Yeah, that's it. They got bought by Microsoft, and they're not allowed to appear on this podcast anymore.
There's going to be a Plat Chat flight sim podcast very soon.
Brent and Josh are actually going to HCS. They're being Halo personalities now. So they've actually had to send them to the time capsule and age them 15 years to match the average Halo fan. And then they're all gonna be appearing there. So it's gonna be nice. Be good stuff.
Okay. I want to get into the predictions. We're going to look at the EU qualifiers and see what we're feeling for the top picks coming out in the second round. Not it, but it's close. Let's
You did start
go.
with predictions, to be fair.
Bring up the VLR. I mean, they are both predictions. But yeah, we're just going to give our top picks for what we're feeling with the EU right now. The one I want to start, and I mean, this is the one I wish Josh was here because I just love to make fun of him for Fnatic having used them for all their content of just they've just ripped every Josh clip of him saying something negative about Fnatic, and then the beat drops and they just have a Durka frag movie after it, and I think it's really funny. But unfortunately, Josh isn't here. But I am it's that's a God. It's so confusing.
I can lay it down
That's
for you.
the
So
right
there's eight teams, 4 of which were the ones that were in close qualifiers last time. So your choices are Team Vitality, Alliance, Rebels Gaming, and 10-Star. And then basically brackets break it down to 19 Esports / Team Finest / Anonymo. Anonymo beat Giants last week. That's another team. Need More DM, XL, CGN, or Case being another slot. G2 and Yonk mostly being another spot. And then London United, Cova, Wave, and Team Kesso all in a spot as well. So for me, I'd say the G2 still have a chance no matter what. They're kind of a team that is almost too big to fail in some cases, especially now that the teams involved are a little bit more straightforward to deal with. So for example, like, yeah, you've got the teams there broken into bracket of like those 4 that are getting through. I don't think it's any point doing pick'ems really, but I think Rebels Gaming actually has more of a chance than people give them credit for. Like,
yes,
nobody really knows about them.
When I saw the second round,
the team that dropped a map against. They picked up a map against Guild even.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought for when it said second round, I thought we were going to talk about the round when it actually gets into the like second round with all the rest of the teams that have already made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
VLR has it confusing as fuck, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Do they?
you were pointing it out because they label it as challengers 2, where it's just not challengers 2. Like it's just not.
Yeah.
Nowhere does it say
Open
that.
qualifiers, yeah.
It's just the second open qualifier for
Absolutely
challengers.
drenched in the sauce.
Yeah. So I blame VLR.
It's even better. It's even better on the like official VCT website because you actually have the teams doing their picks and bans in the comments of the threads. For the actual like tournament matchup.
You just revealed a secret tech that you showed us earlier. But
it's there. Everybody can see it. Doombros, the FPX coach, is like and subscribe in each of the comments. They might as well do the pick and bans on the VLR threads. Go into fucking Club Penguin and do them there. Like, it's so weird that they've got these systems in place to do their picks and bans on a public. Oh man, like.
Don't believe us? Go look on the VCT
Go
website.
Look.
Go look,
I
and you
bet
can
get
see
there
your
from
favorite
VLR.
team picking and banning the maps.
Which
The
one
match
was
thread.
Was it the G2 game? The first G2 game? Where
Don't believe it.
Yeah, he's like,
so
like and
are we
subscribe.
picking then for the teams that are going to make it into the closed qualifier with the other teams? Is that that's already made it through?
We're just talking because this is going to end this week. So next time we have a Plat Chat podcast episode, we're going to know who's going to join the teams and challengers.
Right.
You know, Fnatic, Gambit, Ascend, all of them. So who are the who there's one or who is it? There's 2 teams that are going to make it from EU. There's 1 team from CIS. There's 1 team from Turkey.
Right.
Pick a team.
Right. I mean,
G2, is it Vitality, LDN, United?
Is it Denstar?
Denstar didn't look great.
No.
They're also like adjusting to Doma coming into the roster. So like they sort of have that same look of 10-Star from way back when where they did look quite good, but I don't think they have enough time realistically to get to a point where they're qualifying for challenges. As much as I like this team.
I watched an open qualifier game of them and I was fairly happy, but I didn't get to watch them here, and they're stats ending. They're terrible. Stats Steven or whatever. Avast you can make.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I just don't have any like hard take on this. I think it's pretty up in the air, and I mean, really, the only team, the most interesting team is still just G2. And what state are they going to be in? Are they going to be decent enough to qualify with whatever is happening with that team?
I'd like them to. Like, I think an event of that size for that long without G2 would be a shame, just like for viewership and for the storylines, what they could do. I'd like
will
to
they?
see Vitality sort out their shit, but I just don't believe that they can show up for those big important games.
Speaking about things that you'd want to see, I want to see Vitality because you know what's really fun watching? It's really fun watching them choke leads.
You're so,
It's
you're so,
heartbreaking.
you're so evil this episode. This episode, you lost your mind. Something happened. There's something's going on with Balla over there. I need to check his water supply. There's actually heavy metals in it. Like, I don't know what's going on. He's just gotten evil.
I
More
just
evil.
got LASIK on Friday and I haven't put my eye drops in like 2
Is
hours.
that it? Is that
So maybe
is that
that's
what
why
the problem is? You've just gotten evil this episode. I mean,
That's fine.
realistically, looking at the teams remaining and the teams that have already made it, like, it's probably got to be what the fuck is going on with G2. I do think Vitality is an interesting shout, just because they just kind of do look interesting, like, right now, but they don't look like they have their shit together totally still. I feel like if G2 had like even a semblance of togetherness, they probably would have won their match. So G2 I feel like G2, especially if they just pick a roster and run with it and they've gotten their initial match nerves out, they probably make it through.
Shout out to Yonk as well. Like Yassine Bonker's team that I think is rumored to be picked up by an Org's name that escapes me. But yeah, like they're in the bracket as well with G2, so that's a fun game that's going to be on today. Tundra Esports, so like that's nice to see those guys being picked up instantly and stuff. I think Alliance as well actually did look pretty good. Like they brought in Zik and Cider from Wave, and you still have Looker playing a Jett, but it kind of like I said before, like he doesn't need to be super flashy because the foundations of the team are looking a lot stronger, and I think they got knocked out by Big, right? So there's I think they maybe lost to Big twice in this tournament. So yeah, they got knocked down to the lower bracket by Big in a best of 3, and then lost in the lower round 3 against Big. So I think if they play up against some of the other teams, they could actually do quite well. I think it's them, Vitality, and G2 for that spot, and Yonk.
Yeah.
Which team?
Actually, I do
Vitality?
I'm revising. I really do want Vitality to make it too because I like Brams. I think Brams is a really good player. I think he's clutch as fuck. So there we go.
Don't like Vac, so
I mean, sure, you don't like Vac, but I like Brams.
Why do you like Vac?
What's wrong with Vac, Balla? What's the problem? What?
He's just chaos. He's not even gonna give a real answer. He's just
the state of the meta the state of the meta segment just
his brain is
Balla
mush
will
right
never
now.
recover from the state of the meta discussion.
Well, we're trying to do predictions. So what do you just like pick 2 teams? Is what
I picked my teams. I picked my teams. G2,
Okay.
Vitality.
G2 we're gonna make it through for the wrong reasons, and Vitality are gonna make it through.
Crack.
What?
Ryan.
The G2 are gonna make it
G2. You guys think
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna like it, and they're gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna go for like Alliance and G2. I think.
Okay.
I just think that G2 will just run their way for it. You know, at this point, like it's just because they've actually had some games to warm up, and they aren't clowning around by picking Fracture against teams that really want to play Fracture. I think that should be enough. I think their firepower is a lot better than a lot of the teams in here. That I'd be really concerned if they lost and then ended up playing in the Polaris VRL. For Christ's sake, that'd be a nightmare.
Epic.
So,
Epic. All right, cool. Vitality and Alliance. I don't believe in G2.
No belief in G2.
There we go.
Haters
See, look at that.
everywhere. Haters everywhere.
I love
Haters
that.
everywhere.
Unbelievable. All right. I am going to make the executive decision. I think we could just talk about the Knights tournament once it's over. We don't need to preview it.
This episode is already quite long.
Yeah,
so.
we ended up going pretty long, so we can talk about the Knights tournament once it actually happens and we see some of the
I
matches.
expected so many more good teams to be in this tournament. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of why. Also, didn't a bunch of teams drop out?
I mean, Gen.G, I think.
Is what I
was
saw,
supposed to be
yeah.
in, dropped out.
So
Cloud9's in it, so that's cool. T1.
maybe they dropped out because they haven't got Rhyme in the States yet.
Yeah, probably.
well,
So that
There we
makes
go.
sense. That's the only reason.
facts have been distributed, and that sounds believable enough to me. But yeah, we could probably talk about that after if there are any interesting games. But yeah, weekly award, the last segment. Roll the clip.
Most important.
That really sums up this episode.
All right. This week, the weekly award, 2-time winner, It's going to RyanCentral. Happy birthday,
you.
Ryan. I just wanted to give it to you for your birthday.
Man, that whole champs thing was a nightmare. It genuinely was. It was the worst. It was the best worst experience of my life, I'll say. But yeah, happy to win it again.
Happy birthday,
so-
Ryan.
But it
Just
actually
to
was
try
a
and catch
birthday
up to
not
that.
that long ago. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just the fact they gave me this like whoop-ass cake, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to like share it out with people. I'm
Wait,
like,
sorry,
oh, because of
what
COVID.
type of cake? What?
Big ass cake, big ass carrot cake, whatever
Like
it was.
like the what?
The best part of that was like, oh, like I think Dash said, like, oh, it's a carrot cake. We heard that you liked it. I don't know who we heard that from. I don't know who at any point was like, yeah, it's his birthday, and also he really likes carrot cake. So great, thanks.
But who
Thanks for
doesn't like
the
carrot
good
cake? Everyone likes
I mean,
carrot
I
cake.
didn't like it in that moment, to be fair, trying to make a decision, and I can't give it
You
out to people
told me
because of
it
COVID.
was-
So I had
You
this
told
big
me it was
cake.
cheesecake. You put it in the fridge in the talent room, and I tried to eat something that wasn't cheesecake.
Do you not like carrot cake?
No, carrot
I got
cake's
them mixed
fine.
up.
It's fine
I
with
was in the
cheesecake.
moment. What type of cake wasn't important to me. I just didn't want to see it, so I put it in the fridge, and I think it's still there, probably.
No, they emptied that room.
Thank God. It was
Poor
yeah.
carrot
It's
I
always
thought
good
there was
be
about to be
on-
all this carrot cake slander, and I was going to take offense to that. 'cause
Yeah, I
carrot
was
cake
about
owns.
to be pissed.
Carrot cake slams. Carrot cake
It was-
actually slams
yes,
and
it does.
owns. All right.
It was they genuinely thought it was my birthday. Is the worst part. Only one person of the broadcast knew it wasn't, which was the assistant director Leah, who was our producer in EMEA, and she just let it slide.
Yeah. Well,
If she
Respect.
did,
they don't know
I would
you as well as
respect.
I do. Little do they know, today is actually your birthday, which is why you've won the award.
I am
Happy birthday, Ryan.
156 years old at this
Wow.
point.
And guys, remember to leave a comment saying happy birthday to Ryan on this episode of Plat Chat. That's my request for viewer engagement. Happy birthday, Ryan. And I think that's it. I think we'll just see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Watch me, bye. Bye.